Wayne Osmond, Jeff Baina, Mike Rinder, Colonel St. James, David Lynch, Bob Uecker, Joan Plowright, John Sykes, Marianne Faithfull, John Irwin, Virginia Hellis McCaskey, Irv Gotti, Dave Jordan, Tony Roberts, Dick Jaroun, Peter Navy, Tuia Sosapo, Kevin Major Hayward, Julian Holloway, Anne-Marie Hochhalter, Lynn Marie Stewart, Peter Jason, Voletta Wallace, Roberta Flack, Roberto Orci, Michelle Trachtenberg, Gene Hagman, David Johansson, Carl Thomas Dean, George Lowe, Pamela Back, Craig Wolfley, Stanley R. Jaffe, Robert Trebor, Clive Revel, Wings Hauser, Jan Schwederman, George Foreman, Jack Liley, Bill Mercer, Hong Jong-hee, Matt Stevens, Bruce Glover, Val Kilmer, Clem Burke, Jay North, Octavio Dettell, Nikki Catt, Vaughn P. Drake Jr., Ted Kotcheff, Steve Mongo McMichael, Jill Sobel, Ruth Buzzy, Steve Pepoon, Joe Don Baker, Robert Benton, Sabu, Daniel Lee Tomordy, aka Censored Gaming, George Wendt, Jim Irsay, Dave Shapiro, Jose Grinen, Rick Derringer, Ed Gale, Peter Kwong, Alf Clausen, Loretta Swit, Valerie Mahaffey, Renee Victor, Jonathan Joss, Julia Riley, Sly Stone, Brian Wilson, Harris Yulin, Betsy Jochum, Jack Betts, Michaela Rains, Lynn Hamilton, Mick Rouse, Lalo Sheriffin, Michael Madsen, Julian McMahon, Antoine Long, James Carter Cathcart, Brian Brahman, Alan Bergman, Papa Jake Larson, Harry Standofsky, Kenneth Washington, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan, Chuck Mangione, Julian LaFay, Jeffrey Lewis Starr, Alan Abutbol, Lonnie Anderson, Jim Lavelle, Bobby Whitlock, Dr. Danielle Spencer, Tomo Sakurai, Terrence Stamp, Jerry Adler, Frank Price, Graham Greene, Scott Spiegel, David Keeley, Joseph McNeil, Rick Davies, Stuart Craig, Charlie Kirk, Paula Shaw, Polly Holliday, Robert Redford, Billy Hudson, Elaine Merck Binder, Lieutenant Colonel George Hardy, Renato Casaro, Jane Goodall, Ed Williams, Ron Dean, Diane Keaton, Drew Struzan, Paul Williams, Tomonobu Edegaki, Ace Frehley, Sam Rivers, Bob Horn, a.k.a. Mo, June Lockhart, Nick Mangold, Bjorn Andresen, Checky Cario, Adam Greenberg, Earl Cochran, James Watson, Diane Ladd, Lee Tamahori, Sally Kirkland, Allison Ellen Kessler, Udo Kier, Gary Jellybean Johnson, Viola Ford Fletcher, Sarah Beckstrom, Larry the Dog, Tomoichi Nishimura, Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa, Jeffrey Garcia, Jim Ward, Peter Green, Abraham Quintana, Carl Carlton, Dave Ward, Lamar Wilson, Rob Reiner, Anthony Geary, Gil Gerard, James Ranson, Vince Zampella, Adam the Woo, Neil Frank, Mickey Lee, Perry Bamonte, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., and Tatiana Schlossberg. Rest in peace. Well, it's the first time for everything, I guess. Now I have not one, but two on the addendum list as well for in memoriam people I forgot to mention here, or didn't have time to when I did the original thing. The first being Marianne Wilson, the founder and host of Welp Sit and Be Fit, which is something I actually do remember watching when I was younger. I had no idea she had passed away, and I wanted to mention here. But also, for the world of gaming, actually, David Rosen, the co-founder of Sega, died on Christmas Day in 2025. Yeah, this one hurts here. I know he lived one long hell of a life, but still, I mean, I don't know. It just still hurts because, May both of them rest in peace along with everyone else mentioned. Now on with the rest of the video. Now that we got the hard part out of the way, let's get to the rest of this video and what you're probably all here for, to hear me talk about the games I played in 2025. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Oh, the ugly. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go. January was primarily focused on one series and one series only, the Killzone series. This is a series that I'd known about for a while, and in terms of console first-person shooters, always one that seemed to be primed for me to check out, but I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go until January of 2025 hit, when I started with the first Killzone on PS2, or rather, I just emulated it. Yeah, you see, getting the trilogy together is kind of a pain, because if you want the trilogy pack on PlayStation 3, which gets you the original 3 games, it kind of goes for about $45 complete. As a result, thanks to my convention hunting and other stuff, it ended up being much cheaper just buying all 3 separately, since there's really not much of a difference between the actual content, well, not just the content, but some of the other stuff with the games themselves, other than the HD treatment that Killzone 1 got, but since I played it in PCX2, that was not much of a concern. So, Killzone 1. This was supposed to be basically Sony's Halo killer for the PS2, and it was very highly anticipated upon its release. Unfortunately, the game had a very mixed reception when it came out, and having played through it finally, unfortunately I hate to say it, but I can kind of see why. The basic plot basically takes place in the year 2357, and nuclear war renders much of the Earth uninhabitable in 2055. So an international order is formed, the United Colonial Nations, and the UCN is trying to establish human colonies in Alpha Centauri, a system occupied by 2 different planets. You have an Earth-like world known as Vecta, which is named after the CEO of the mining conglomerate, and Helghan, which is the wasteland, not unlike something you'd see in the Fallout series. Our main character actually here is Jan Templar, a veteran ISA officer who is basically fighting the fight against them alongside his squad. The Wikipedia is kind of giving me a little too much detail, but if I was to go somewhere else on IMDb, well, I'm not sure here. But basically, Killzone 1 isn't really particularly that different here from any other typical first-person shooter of this ilk. And for the most part here, it seems like a fine enough game until you start playing, getting further and further into the game, and well, that's when the game's problems really start to just become more apparent. There's this weird auto-aiming system that just does not feel right here when you're aiming with guns. Well, it's not all of them, but some of them do. And there's some of the good ones that you need to try to really use to get further in the game. Not only that, but really, it just does not feel as smooth to play as even other shooters from this era. Like, actually going back and playing it for the first time, I was just astounded with how clunky it felt. And that's my main issue with Killzone 1. I like a lot of other things about it. I like the lore behind it. I like the graphics. I like the overall idea. But the gameplay itself just feels so clunky here when you compare it to other console shooters from that era like Time Splitters, and even, well, the game it so desperately aspires to be in Halo. And if it was just that, that'd be one thing, but the checkpoint system is absolutely fickle with where it gives you checkpoints and how it actually will set them up for you. And if you fail enough here, it'll send you further back, and just every hit just feels lost. I am actually glad that I played this in softcore mode on retro achievements, because playing it in hardcore mode would have just really further, I think, illustrated the game's problems. And honestly, I think it actually does not hold up like the best in the entire series. On the whole, I can see the foundations of what the later games would become with Killzone 1, but Killzone 1 itself is just eh I don't know. I was let down with Killzone 1. Now Killzone 2 on the other hand, oh boy. What a 180 turnaround practically. I mean, holy shit. Killzone 2 just everything that I hated about the first game with how it felt and how it played and being more fickle with a lot of stuff when it came to checkpoints and shit. And just a lot of other things. Like, honestly, it just all that is gone here in Killzone 2. As a result, you have a game that still feels very good to play. Killzone 2 actually came out early in the PlayStation 3's lifespan in February of 2009, and pretty much again continues the war between the Vetkans and the Helghast. And now you have a new protagonist, Tomas Sevchenko, or just Sev for short here, as he and his unit battle the Helghast as the Vetkans invade Helgen, pretty much picking up where Jan Templar and his squad left off at in the previous game. And Templar actually returns in a supporting role along with Rico Velasquez. Now, the game itself kind of does tend to double down on some of the more Halo-ish aspects, like only being able to actually hold two weapons, which, of course, if you're a Halo-like game, you're gonna have a lot of Halo-like stuff in it. But I will say, I think just the way it flowed improved the overall pacing of it, and it feels like a breeze to play through, but there's so much that happens in Killzone 2. I think it's very enjoyable. And again, it pretty much continues the story of the first game, which was one of the good things about the original Killzone, but it just plays so much better. The only thing I really didn't like was the forced use of certain six-axis features because, every PS3 game around this time was desperate to have some six-axis functionality. But, yeah. Although the ending, I know, definitely... Let's just say a certain key character makes a very, very stupid decision here, quite frankly. But, I mean... The game was still enjoyable to play, and of course it led directly into the third. And keep in mind here, never mind the whole pre-rendered teaser, actually. I still think Killzone 2 is solid to play just because it feels smooth, actually. It fixes a lot of the bad crap from the first game, and it continues a lot of what makes the first games, or at least a lot of the good that was there in the first game. And honestly, Killzone 2 is absolutely worthy of the acclaim it gets, and I'm proud to say that this is one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games. So, yeah, Killzone 2, I'll just say it right now, this was the best game in the entire series. That's not to say Killzone 3 wasn't very good. It was still very, very good indeed. Again, it pretty much picked up a lot of the same stuff in Killzone 2. And, well, yeah. Although I will say there's a lot more crazier set pieces in this one. Not to say the previous games didn't have any, but I think Killzone 3 really upped it with like the jetpack section and battling with some of the other bosses. Though I will say some of the more frustrating bits just with how certain segments were designed to really push you in a way. It's not as much as bad as the first game because the smooth gameplay from the second one is still here for the most part. And it still is very enjoyable. A little longer than the second, but not as long as the first. And it even has 3D support and PlayStation Move support as well. So if you're playing on real hardware, you actually can play with sort of a Wii-like control scheme, which I know as I started to play more Wii games over the course of the year and just my life in general, and I think back of them, some of them haven't aged well, but some have aged better, but yeah. Killzone 3, basically follows off the bad decision that the particular character from Killzone 2 made, and now they're still fighting through more Hellgast, and which basically triggered a full-scale invasion. And now, because the Hellgas are seeking revenge for what happened at the end of the second game, the survivors of the ISA are trying to find a way home because, yeah. And honestly, it does take more harsher environments like the first game here, but again, the smoother gameplay of the second, jetpacks, which were actually in the PSP game, Killzone Liberation, which I've not played, and the melee itself was revamped as well to a certain degree, which actually does help a lot. So you can easily do more attacks from behind and close quarter combat. There's a new weapon which is pretty cool, the Wasp, which is like this multi-firing rocket launcher with a spiral formation. And I don't think Killzone 2 is as good as, or Killzone 3, I mean, is as good as Killzone 2, but it's still a very solid follow up on the whole, and I can imagine you could do far worse. Which finally leads us to the last game for the month of January, as well as the last Killzone title we had before Guerrilla Games got hooked on the Horizon series. Killzone Shadowfall. Now, after the events of the third game here, the ISA grants refugee to Hellgas survivors on the planet Vecta, which allows them to colonize half the planet, with half of it dubbed New Helgen. And essentially, there's this massive security fortification simply called the Wall. Yeah, I know, very creative. Which basically separates the two civilizations from each other because of, well, there are tensions because of the wars. The Vetkans and the Hellgas perform covert operations against each other to try to finish the war each claims the other started. The majority of it handles in Vecta City, and yeah. To be honest, I feel like Killzone Shadowfall was really starting to further slip back into the more egregiously dragged out sections from Killzone 1. Yes, the gameplay is better, but again, checkpoints also started to be a bit more finicky here. And while there's a good amount of new weapons and stuff, and other things, and some other interesting aspects, and the game looks very nice on the whole, honestly, I don't know. It's also more open-ended level design as opposed to a more linear nature of the previous game. And there's a lot more stealth in this one, which, given how the past few games went, it seems like such a jarring decision to make this late into the series' lifespan. I know some people will appreciate the multiple ways/routes to complete objectives, and sometimes it's fun, but some of the stealth stuff just is not properly well designed. It feels like the game is just not designed with stealth in mind proper. And not to mention, in general, I was just fed up as well with the ending. It just, honestly, it just seems like such a disappointment. And that last mission is actually a mid-credits sequence, which I find irritating. On the whole, I feel like Killzone Shadowfall is technically the second worst game in the franchise, only with the first one being the worst, Killzone 3 being in second place, and Killzone 2 being the best. It's kind of sad too, because I know this was a PlayStation 4 launch title, and I know probably for launch title standards, there probably would have been worse, but honestly, I felt like Killzone Shadowfall was several steps back, and it's kind of sad that this is how the franchise is likely going to end, because we don't know what the hell is going to happen. The only other most recent thing we had was a crossover with Helldivers 2, but in terms of a new game, I don't see that happening here. I have no idea what's next in store for Guerrilla Games, but yeah, we'll just see what happens here. And I mean as a dedicated dev. Anyways, that takes care of the month of January. Let's go to February. And just like January, February was a very busy month. Although I started with 2 different series, and I knocked another notch off in a trilogy I've been playing on the side in my spare time, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Starting off the month, I had finished Bayonetta. Now, Bayonetta was a series I had always wanted to play for quite a while now. However, due to let's just say, the fracturedness of the way the sequels are all set up, it kind of made it a pain in the ass to play 2 and 3 if you did not have a Nintendo Switch. Oh, you can still buy the first game on Steam, but for whatever grubby little pause, I guess Nintendo didn't read the fine print that they were going to be publishing a sequel, and now Platinum is stuck in this weird binding arrangement, and it's fucked because Bayonetta 2 deserves a release on other platforms, but I'll get to that one later. Let's just focus on the first game, the one that started it all, the original classic, Bayonetta. From the mind of Hideki Kamiya of Devil May Cry fame, and from the minds of Platinum Games, comes a series that very much feels like a spiritual successor to Devil May Cry, but subsequently handles things very, very differently. See, rather than a style ranking directly to judge the player, Bayonetta and a lot of Platinum action games use arena-based ranking, which judge you based on variables like time, combo points, and damage at the end of individual fights, which gets tallied up at the end of each chapter to determine your final rank. Development of this thing started in January of 2007 with Kamiya at the helm of the name, and the development team's name, Team Little Angels, is a play on Team Little Devils, the team who did the first Devil May Cry. While there was some inspiration from Scandinavian mythology, as well as Kamiya playing through Devil May Cry 4 for reference, the game was itself completely original. Not to mention, at a time when people seem to want to forget what makes an actual strong female character actually worthy of said title, look no further than this game right here, actually. I mean, fuck, it took a year for Bayonetta's design overall on the whole. I will say, though, it's definitely a lot similar to Devil May Cry. Like, if you've played Devil May Cry, you would definitely pick up on this. But it has a bit of differences to a certain degree, I suppose, with certain special abilities and other things you can do that you couldn't do in Devil May Cry, such as Witch Time, which basically, when you make a well-timed dodge to an attack, it can slow time down, actually, or rather increases your speed, which basically allows you to inflict more damage upon enemies before they even have a chance to barely move an inch. And there's all sorts of other things as well, too. Your standard bits of platforming, and by and large, it's actually very similar, but it definitely has a very, very different flair to Devil May Cry on the whole. And it's got a very unique European theme, and it's very much Sega-like in a lot of nature, with a lot of the music in particular, which is why it's all the more frustrating that Nintendo got their paws on it. Really, though, just to be honest, I've played through this thing twice. Once on easy mode, because it was my first time playing a game in this series, and then once on normal for a second run just to get those extra achievements. And really, I feel like I said a lot that I needed to in my post-stream thoughts about particular games, but really, you should just play this. Even if you don't have a modern Nintendo console like a Wii U or a Switch or a Switch 2 that will be capable of playing the sequels, at least play the first one, because you can get that on everything, at least, from PS3, 360, and on. You can get that on the Wii U, PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. Just play the first Bayonetta. It's a very solid game. Okay, before we get to that game's sequel, we have to go to another 2 entry, though that was always intended to be exclusive to the PlayStation line, given that the previous game and all subsequent games in the series have been. Jak 2. Yeah, this one took a bit longer to get through than I thought it would, and to be honest, I felt like this whole damn thing was a step back. I know the game received critical acclaim, well, at least it's what Wikipedia says, but you look at the article, we're not quite there. And while it was mostly positively received, with the exception of GameSpy standard, or not really standard, but awkward 2 out of 5, I'm gonna be honest, going through Jack 2, I felt like this whole thing was a step back. And I get what they were trying to do with Jack 2. I get it, how they were trying to expand everything that did well in the first game with the platforming stuff, and that's still all very good to a certain degree. But unfortunately, I think this game took two inspiration from two different things, two different PS2 games that came out the same year the first Jack and Daxter did, and I don't know if it quite fully executed them well, and not only that, but relied on aspects too much. More specifically, the game takes a more open world feel, and as a result, you have more missions that can handle flying cars. I think you could take a wild guess as to what inspired this, but in case you forgot, or you haven't played enough games from this area, it was so blatantly obviously inspired by Grand Theft Auto 3. And yeah, it was pretty much. Actually, that game's success, and with how much, even though the precursor Legacy was a success, maybe not as much as the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, that's when they decided basically to try and target the game differently from the plot and everything else. I'm not going to say it's full on bad like Try did from My Life in Gaming, because I really don't think it's a bad game at its core. But I do think it does tend to rely too much on vehicle sections that don't feel right because the flying cars themselves feel very floaty. And we have a hoverboard inspired bits as well, where you'll use a hoverboard because, well, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 came out as well, and I've already raved about that game and how it practically is one of the best still on the system, one of the best still in that series, and just one of the best games of all time. I will say, though, like, a lot of the other stuff still is fine. It's just that this game is a lot more frustrating because of the way the checkpoint system is set up, and some missions you still have to redo, and it's not quite as good as the first game. I'm not going to fully say this is a bad game, but I was disappointed with Jack 2 on the whole, and it felt like it just dragged ass, which was my main issue with the game. I could forgive everything else if the pacing of it wasn't so bad. Like, it really feels a lot more bloated compared to the first game. Yeah. Now going on to a 2 game that actually is better to a certain degree than the original, and my personal favorite in the series, believe it or not, Bayonetta 2. The one Nintendo save, but unironically, or ironically, in a weird, cruel twist of fate. I don't know how to say it, but however you want to phrase it, Nintendo basically, in a weird way, brought this game back to where it would have never happened, but unfortunately trapped it to a fate worse than hell, trapped on Nintendo consoles for eternity. I know the story about how it really happened because basically Sammy, Sega's publisher or owner, was in bad shape here and shelved a bunch of stuff, although shelving Bayonetta 2 would have been a completely bad idea. Honestly, Bayonetta 2 really does actually tend to improve a lot of the same stuff here that was in the first game. The action is very similar and plays just as well. Again, I feel like it's easier to play it on normal from the get-go, although maybe having played through the first game twice, I can honestly say that you probably do get better at it as you keep going as well. Again, the mix of guns and swords here in Melee might even be more better to play around with than Devil May Cry, especially when you get all the abilities and you can make Bayonetta just a flying gun wielding, ass kicking, sexy lady. And also the torture attacks. Something I forgot to mention the first time. There's those which the way those are set up kind of remind me a little bit of God Hand, which No surprise, Platinum Games rose from the ashes of Clover, which made God Hand. And also there is one new element here, the Umbran, climax, which activates when you have a full magic gauge, which basically makes you much stronger and everything too. And yeah, honestly, the story is also even more wilder and crazier too, even more than the first. I just love the whole vibe of it as well, like to a certain degree. But I also really just love the bar music, the Gates of Hell music. Like that is my new favorite, one of my new favorite relaxing music bits here. And honestly, it is a really good game and is worthy of all the acclaim that it's gotten. And I would say it's actually my favorite in the series because 3 is hell certainly did not do that, but we will get to that much later because I did not have it at that point, but we'll get to that one much later. Going back to a new series actually that I had started that I'd wanted to knock off my backlog was Little Big Planet. Yes, I spent quite a bit of this year going through classic PS3 games that I had not played, and this was a big one. Little Big Planet. Now, this one was primarily centered around content creation between the level editor and the pop-it to access created tools, which sadly none of the online stuff works much anymore. And for former Lionhead Studios, after the release of Ragdoll Kung Fu, basically formed Media Molecule and wanted to create a game based around content creation. It started as a prototype known as Craft World to then Sony Computer Entertainment Worldwide Studios president Phil Harrison. And ultimately, the whole thing was launched. Little Big Planet was announced at Game Developers Conference 2007. And after a small delay to remove controversial lyrics from an in-game licensed song, which there's quite a lot of in-game licensed music, which you wouldn't think, it was released in the fall of 2008 and was met with acclaim. And playing it, I can see why. Really, what I love about this game is just its art style. It's so very cool. It's like actual physical toys and other things like that have come to life in a weird way. And the levels themselves are very creative. There's a lot of very different themed ones that have different unique themes to them, so no level or world feels too different. And even though there are a handful of bits that are frustrating, I wouldn't say it's overly difficult, although that one bit pissed me off. Those of you who watched my stream know what I'm talking about, but if not, I don't really remember. It was more closer to the end of the game. But you know what? Most of the game is still very fine, and really, there was. Honestly, I don't really think there's been a game quite like it. Not to mention, the whole thing is just very quirky. Like, on the whole, it's such a quirky game. But really, it's just. Yeah. It's quirky. It's unique. I mean, for goodness sakes, Stephen Fry is the freaking narrator of the game. I mean, that should tell you alone what you're in for. It's got a cute look to it, and it's an enjoyable game. I really do like it. But again, like Bayonetta 2 before, there came a little sequel that I ended up actually preferring instead. Enter Little Big Planet 2. I think what it was with this one is that it definitely improved a lot of the good that was in the first game. You could already import your prior Sackboy into it, although it really spent an even bigger focus on user-generated content. That's not to say the single player in these games aren't worth it. You absolutely should play them. A lot of the content creation was improved a lot, but I didn't have much time to spend with it because, well, one, I played this in emulation because our PCS3 is getting better and better, and two, well, Yeah, I mostly do single player stuff. But yeah, although the artistic direction is something I can appreciate, improving a lot of the original, you would think recycling stuff again would be a bigger, might be more of a thing, but surprisingly, no. There's actually a lot more good stuff in this thing. I think also it does have to do with a lot of the technological improvements as well that make the game uh, so much more nicer to look at as if it already didn't, because a lot of these older PS3 games, when I upres them to 1080 in our PCS3 when I can do so, they still look very damn good even to this day. And honestly, I think I did just roll better with this one because there wasn't as much frustrating bits. There was still some tricky bits, but it was very satisfying to get through it. And honestly, the lore itself is very weird and unique and different. It's as weird as Katamari. But you know what? I would definitely say Little Big Planet 2 is definitely worth a play. And this is, again, another game that is easily on my favorite. Like, someone were to ask me my favorite PlayStation 3 games, I would definitely say Killzone 2, Little Big Planet 2, Metal Gear Solid 4. Shoot, what else can I even say? I mean, I know I played a lot. Probably God of War 3, even though I played that on PS4, which is the definitive version. So I could replace that with Ascension if you want a PS3 dedicated one, but we'll get to that one later on. But yeah, Little Big Planet 2, one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games as well. Yeah, I loved it. You thought the Little Big Planet train stopped there in February? Oh no, February may have been a shorter month, but March definitely picked up where we last left off. Little Big Planet karting. What happens when you take the creativity of every different account of Little Big Planet and put this into a kart racing game? You get a pretty interesting little game, actually, and a pretty enjoyable racer. By and large, it's not too much different from your average kart racer, but if you are a big fan of Little Big Planet, like, and this story technically is still canon, you even go back to some other similar places and encounter another character who happens to be the brother of a particular character from the second game. It's very connected still. But again, it has that same user generated content stuff that really using that same style the series was known for to customize your Sackboy and your card as well and all sorts of other stuff. There's also a track editor, so you can do all sorts of fun stuff with that. And even the level editor is similar to a prior game that actually kind of maybe served as the inspiration for this, that was also made by the same people who made this one. That being United Front Games. Yes, that United Front Games who made Sleeping Dogs and San Diego Studio. Mod Nation Racers. And I should probably check that one out as well, seeing as how basically I've heard that it's similar to this. But yeah, Little Big Planet karting. Even if you're not a fan of kart racers, but you are a fan of Little Big Planet, I would check this one out here. I know it had mixed reviews, but I was very satisfied with my playthrough throughout it. And I don't play a lot of racing games on stream anyways. It's not that I have anything against the genre. I love racing games, those of you who know me. It's just that there's not a lot of them on my backlog. But yeah, it's still a solid single player, even despite the fact that probably all the multiplayer stuff doesn't even really. Yeah. Yeah, I really did like Little Big Planet karting, so check it out. Now we go to Tekken 8. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Uh, Tekken has went full bore DBZ at this point, but really this game kind of further hammers it all in. It's kind of crazy because this is the 8th main installment in the Tekken series, the 10th overall if you exclude the tag tournament games, and the first one to debut directly on home systems and exclusively for what generation are we on now? I forget. The ninth generation, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X/S, but you can still get it on PC. taking place 6 months after the events of Tekken 7 and on the final confrontation between Jin Kazama and Kazuya Mishima, as well as the introduction of Reina, a very mysterious character who I still don't want to spoil details of. Also, Jun Kazama somehow is alive in her first canon appearance since Tekken 2, but not really at the same time. The series lore went absolutely batshit bonkers crazy. And quite frankly, it's never really been established her canonicity. It's so fucking weird and bizarre. There's also an additional story mode that focuses on Lydia, who's a new character in this game, as well as Eddie Gordo and Yoshimitsu uncovering the Mishima clan's ancient history. And it really was a more aggressive kind of toned ordeal, but something I've noticed about a lot of modern fighting games that I think I mentioned when I talked about Dead or Alive 6 the year prior is that a lot of them have been getting more simplified. And I feel like this one definitely is here as well, though maybe not as much as DOA 6 was. There's even other mechanics, and the whole thing, I don't know. I feel like it starts to get even further away from Tekken 6, even going this more over the top here from its gameplay standpoint. I mean, this is a very fun game. I still really love it. Don't get me wrong. The game pretty much has received damn near critical acclaim. I don't know if I call it the best Tekken entry. I've been a lifelong Tekken fan. Maybe one day I will review everything here in this series that I can. It would be nice. I'm not sure what I want to do. I have other fighting game plan reviews, but we'll see. But yeah, I did enjoy Tekken 8. I don't know if I'm going to probably continue. I've already 100%ed the thing, and I don't know what else to say about it that hasn't already been said. Now, back to Little Big Planet for a minute, and the last overall game in the franchise, not counting the spin-off Sackboy. Little Big Planet 3 was sort of a cross-gen title coming out on both PS3 and PS4. And unlike the previous games, original two games, which were made by Media Molecule, this one was made by Sumo Digital, though Media Molecule did do some work. But to a certain degree, it was an undisclosed capacity. Little Big Planet 3 goes off through a certain point here, where everything is fine and dandy, although this new character, Newton, who's voiced by Hugh Laurie, who, fun fact, originally was supposed to be voiced by the late Rick Mayall, but he unfortunately died before he could record his voices, so they had brought in Hugh Laurie, who, of course, Fry and Laurie, Stephen Fry, still narrates these games. Basically uses a wormhole which sends Sackboy into a whole other world, basically, and how these titans here are going to get unleashed, or so we think. Again, it was a whole, you know what, and you can sort of figure out how it all goes. 3 titans, a whole bunch of other stuff happened, and yeah. Again, I do feel like there's really not much more. I feel like by this point, everything was kind of running thin with the series, even though it still had that creation, and without it, it does feel like the series kind of lost a part of its idea. I know that's no fault of the game itself. It's still a very good game, but not as good as the second game. Again, that's where I think the series peaked. I will say, I feel like these games are very easy to grasp, and again, they are still creative on the whole in general. It's like not being able, though, to import my Solid Snake MGS4 variant Sackboy into here because I played Little Big Planet 3 on my PS4 because, hey, you gotta collect those exclusives, am I right? But there are some other characters too, by the way, that kind of make it a little bit different that you'll use in other circumstances. Like you have a dog character who can run faster and wall jump. You have a bird character who can fly around levels and pick up other objects. And you can also use another character who can transform between 3 different versions that you may need to in order to solve certain puzzles, like pushing down on specific platforms or pressure plates. Not to mention there are power-ups as well that give you abilities as well that can help make it easier to get certain objects out of your way and the like. Although, wait, apparently all content from Little Big Planet 3, 1 and 2 are transferred to Little Big Planet 3 on PS3 and PS4 versions, but story progression locked from Little Big Planet 3's predecessor would not transfer. So it was, but I don't think you can do it nowadays because, yeah. And unfortunately, it seemed like there was some other problems too because they were experiencing DDoS attacks, the servers, in March of 2021. And there were some very not nice messages posted by all accounts from what I've heard. All servers were temporarily shut down in May of 2021. And then back in September, the PS4 servers for Little Big Planet 3 were brought back up online, but all PS3 servers were turned off. And then once again in January of 2024, the PS4 servers were turned off due to a malicious game mod that caused users to get falsely banned from PSN, and due to an endless amount of going on technical issues, on April 2024, the servers were permanently closed once again. And furthermore, the game got delisted from PSN. So yeah, you have to get a physical of this. There's probably enough copies to make it cheap enough, and it is a fun game, especially if you like the other two, but I don't know. It's not as good as the, again, Little Big Planet 2. And to close out this month on actually noteworthy playthroughs here, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. Yeah, ever since I made the reference to it in my Death by Degrees video, I had always wanted to play this for a good while. Mainly also just because I was and still am a big fan of the Mortal Kombat franchise. Now, as I mentioned in the Death by Degrees review, we had to slog through Mythology, Sub-Zero, and Special Forces to get to here. Once Midway decided to make Mortal Kombat an annual franchise, this game was officially announced in 2004, with Ed Boon still at the helm, and was released on PS2 and Xbox. Now, unlike Death by Degrees, which tried to make its own unique combat that was poorly executed and implemented at that, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks takes the standard Mortal Kombat fighting that you are familiar with, fatalities and all, because that's been a staple of the series pretty much since its inception. And it puts the fighting into a very unique, a beat-em-up setting. But the fighting still feels very much like Mortal Kombat. So if you've played enough of the MK games, you'll pick up on it easy. And if you haven't, well, you still probably will, but it might take you a little longer to get used to. This is technically a spin-off, I should mention, and is more or less a retelling of Mortal Kombat 2, where you play as, well, Liu Kang and Kung Lao. You can do this in either single-player or co-op play, as you protect Earthrealm from the forces of Outworld. And for the most part, this game does feel an absolute hell of a lot better to play than Death by Degrees because of how it implements the combat. Now, while it does have a multi-directional combat, so you can attack any enemies that surround you fluidly, you think that would make things more complicated, but it's actually a lot smoother to play. Not to mention, you can still launch enemies into the air and continue your combos like you can in the main game. So really, a lot of the other stuff is fine about it, and you can upgrade to get more combos and special moves. And there are certain other hazards that can instantly kill enemies as well. So you can still use these environments as well, which is pretty cool because, again, that's been a thing since the first game. And on the whole, it really does feel a lot better implemented with how it takes the Mortal Kombat world and transforms it into an action beat-em-up game. Unfortunately, there are some bad bosses in this one. Some absolutely awfully egregious bosses in this game that kind of drag it down a little bit. Not to the same degree as Death by Degrees, which, yeah, see what I did there, but yeah, not to the same degree as that game, but it's still absolutely irritating here. Like, for example, here, if I could actually have a timestamp for the boss I'm trying to find right now. Yes, I'm literally doing this on the fly. Ugh, where the fuck? Okay, I seem to be very, very stuck right now. And can't actually find what I'm trying to find. Ah, Baraka. Yeah, here we go. There's your first one. Our first crappy boss is Baraka. Because also the thing is, when I was playing this in PCSX2, there was some visual glitches I was having, some actual graphical glitches that were causing genuine issues. And because I was playing in hardcore mode, I couldn't just save state, restart, reload the state, and go from there. But yeah, let's just say Baraka was easily irritating here and way too aggressive. I think that was part of the problem with the AI I had, is that it was kind of inconsistent here as well. Like sometimes they would just make stupid decisions basically and could easily be exploited. Other times they were way too good for their own good. Not to mention, too, Baraka's fight actually implied on you throwing things, actually, if you were playing as Liu Kang, as opposed to Kung Lao, who could just whip his hat, toss his hat towards him, and just hit him. And it was just a lot more frustrating. Oh, but the worst fucking bit here? Fucking Shao Kahn, man. Egregiously egregious here. And one who will basically annihilate you if you're not careful. And that's not even counting having to fight freaking Kintaro before him, who can break you in half. The worst part here, essentially, is that there's actually a boss fight beforehand. You can actually fight Kano before you fight uh oh god, I already forgot his name. Shao Kahn and frickin' yeah, Kintaro. But it's still frustrating too because you can't skip the game's cutscenes, at least on your first playthrough. And furthermore, it's still you have to act so goddamn aggressive towards the enemy. Oh wait, I forgot. You have to fight Shang Tsung before Kintaro. So it's a 3 triple gauntlet boss you have to fight, and there's no checkpoints in between. Meaning if you die once, get to Shao Kahn, then die, you have to fight back from Shang Tsung all over again. Who practically you can exploit if you just trap him in a corner and keep pummeling away on him. But fuck Kintaro and fuck Shao Kahn. Aside from that, MK Shaolin Monks is still a better game than Death by Degrees. And that's gonna close out March for us. April was not a particularly. I didn't have a lot of stuff logged on here. I know it is what it is. And to be honest, the output that I looked at from what I played and how I feel about each of these games, I'm kind of disappointed, essentially. And it starts with this one right here, Resistance. Yes, after going through the Killzone series of first-person shooters, I thought it was time to take a look at another Sony exclusive first-person shooter series. This time one from Insomniac, the Resistance series. And it started with Resistance Fall of Man, a very early PlayStation 3 title, actually. That was a launch title, no less. Now, this is set in alternate history, 1951, and follows Sergeant Nathan Hale as he and human resistant forces attempt to drive a mysterious alien-like invasion out of the UK. It's kind of like part World War II, part Halo going on in it. Not to mention, there's a lot of very creative weapons since Insomniac made the Ratchet and Clank series, and well, they were best known for doing a lot of that over there. Unfortunately, there are some other things that really drag this one back. Look, I love a lot of the lore of this game. There's a lot of other things I love about it, but I do not love the overall gameplay design with some of the other things. When it comes to checkpoints and some of the difficulty, how it will just chuck endless sections of stuff at you, so many enemies at you, sometimes to a point where even on normal, you will struggle to deal with ammo. Certain types of enemies can only be killed certain ways, which I get to a certain degree, but it's like, I just don't love this game as much because it was frustrating at times, to say the least. And shit, I didn't even like the vehicle sections in this game more than I liked the actual other main parts to a certain degree. Like, after a while, I thought, I wish I was playing this on easy. Especially because not only was this my first time playing this series in general, but also just because um, there's no trophies in this game. This game never got any kind of trophy patch whatsoever. So, yeah, there's no reason for you to play this on a higher difficulty unless you really either are a masochist like me or you're just doing it for bragging rights. Like, there really isn't. And maybe some other unlockables and stuff, but it's just not. It's just not. And it's a shame. I wanted to like it more. And this one would be even more of a struggle. Oh, speaking of struggles, oh god. WrestleMania 21 for Xbox. I already made a long ass review about this game and why it's an absolute utter dumpster fire. So if you really want my full opinion, go watch that video when you're done here. But long story short, WrestleMania 21, even though it didn't piss me off as some of the other wrestling games that I've played, it still felt like a slog to get through. Has a confusing ass unlock system that makes no sense whatsoever here, and it does things that it shouldn't do, like making you load your profile manually instead of auto-loading it, or taking you to a menu to load it, meaning you can go through story mode without even earning any money whatsoever. The gameplay feels sluggish as hell. There are still some things that are not fully ironed out. The story feels like another not as intense version of the Day of Reckoning games, which, as much as those games drove me crazy, I will say they had very good story modes for the most part. And to top it all off, the titular event that the game is named after does not even actually have its arena. That's right, you do not have the WrestleMania 21 arena, you have the WrestleMania 20 arena. Yeah, this game is a fucking mess. Don't play it, really. WrestleMania 21 was bleh. Now, Resistance 2, the sequel to Resistance Fall of Man. Nathan Hale finds himself back on U.S. soil, once again battling the Chimera, the alien forces, who basically have launched full-scale invasion on both the East and the West Coast. To a certain degree, it is somewhat better in some ways than the first, but at the same time, it's not. I actually had some technical issues with this one, more so with our PCS3 itself, mainly just because there was some other instances. It's not fully ironed out there, just a little warning for those of you looking to play this. It probably is to a certain degree better with some other stuff, but also not as, I don't know, I just also kind of found it much of the same as the first. Also some very frustrating sections as well. Even though it did take me less time to beat than the first game, I still found myself, or wait, did I click the right one? Yeah, I was looking at it on my how long to beat. Because even though it did take me less time, I just probably think the first game probably really was just, second one, I guess, is a bit better, but it also feels like a few steps back. Again, my post YouTube short thoughts here. Yeah, although I do wish it did have local co-op, and some people think the campaign was worse and that the multiplayer was better. I can't say. The campaign since I never played the multiplayer, but the campaign, it's just alright. I really don't have much more else to say about this one. Well, May finishes where April started with Resistance 3. And honestly, Resistance 3 is probably the best game in the entire series. I know that's not saying a lot, but I think Resistance 3 was the less egregious one. Very, not as much, ooh, this game pissed me off like the others did. Resistance 3 is fine, and I do think it's genuinely the best in the series. Now, again, it sort of picks off author a different character here following the divisive ending of Resistance 2. And I can say, so at least the gameplay is fine for the most part. It does bring back some elements from the first game, the wheel and the health bar in particular, and you got new environmental objects such as exploding chimeran plants, which does add a little bit of a strategy, I guess, to the game, knowing when to shoot them and some other stuff. There's also a mix of old and new weapons. You've got some classic returning ones, some new ones as well. That has other effects. A new sniper that's very accurate. There's a new food can based explosive. A shrapnel grenade. You can upgrade your weapons and everything. And it even does support PlayStation moves, like Killzone 3 did. And there are some frustrating bits, but it's nowhere near as egregious as I feel like the first game, or even parts of the second game were. So it's a fine one, and it is the best in the series, but on the whole, the Resistance series left me feeling more down. Honestly, if you've exhausted all options for other console-exclusive shooters, it might be worth a play for the Resistance, but you might want to play on a lower difficulty, because I think even those skilled enough to tackle higher difficulties in other shooters might be frustrated with this. Now, on the other hand, a 3 game that is actually also the best in the franchise, but didn't leave me feeling drained, is Jak 3. To sum it up short and sweet, I feel like Jak 3 is the perfect blend of all the new elements in Jak 2, but a bit more of a focus on the platforming stuff with Jak 1. Like, I feel like definitely there's also more variety, more places you can explore that you didn't. The gameplay itself just feels a lot more smoother. And I would say Jak 3 is definitely the best in the entire, like the original Jak and Daxter trilogy out of them. The third game is absolutely the best. It's probably the best PS2 exclusive platformer that I've played so far. And honestly, yeah, the game is worthy of all the claim that it claimed it's gotten. And I would say play the whole trilogy, but especially play the third game. Now, a while back here, or rather around May, I found at my local game shop, I found Sin and Punishment on the Wii Star Successor, and I managed to pick it up. I thought that would be enough, but then I decided, would it be fair to play through the second Sin and Punishment, not having played the first? So I went ahead and, on my homebrewed weed, I put Sin and Punishment on there, and, yeah, we played through it, and we beat the thing in one go. Sin and Punishment is not unlike Panzer Dragoon, although you're not flying as much in certain points, but I'll say this much. It takes place in 2007, which is funny because the game came out in 2000, but oh my god, we're almost 20 years removed from that. Stop the clock, please. War breaks out, humanity struggles with a global famine. You play as 2 characters, Saki and Eren, who are trying to save Earth from destruction. Now, it had a very unique control scheme because originally this was an N64 game. And it used the D-pad and the control stick on the N64 so you can maneuver yourself while simultaneously aiming the target reticle. And basically, if you've played Panzer Dragoon, you'll probably pick up on this. This was co-developed by Treasure and Nintendo Research and Development 1 division. It very much pushed the system to its limits, and it was a proper, I think, a solid end-of-life title that a little frustrating and takes a bit to get used to. But if you've played Panzer Dragoon, Star Fox, or really even Space Harrier, this game is definitely worth a playthrough. It's got a unique look. There are some other things about it that you might have to figure out about as you go on, but it's not a long game. I did beat it in one stream, and I'm very happy about it. But yeah, Sin and Punishment was cool. What about its successor? Star successor, if you will. Boy, where do I even begin? This game is batshit bonkers crazy. Maybe even more so than the first. I'll say this much about it. It looks better. It takes advantage of many different control schemes. You can even use the Wii Zapper if you really want to, which I think is kind of cool because it's not really a rail shooter, but to implement it in such a game like this, I think is very unique. But you can use the classic controller as well as Classic Controller Pro by association and the GameCube controller as well, like you could with the Classic and GameCube controller with the original Sin and Punishment. There are some other different sections and some other things that do try to define how this game goes. There are some different perspectives and other different types of ordeals you'll deal with. It is kind of similar in a way, but honestly, I feel like this one was a lot more crazier and a little bit more frustrating and blood pressure raising in some instances. But you know what? Again, I do think you could probably do far worse in the genre. But yeah, Sin and Punishment Star's successor was fine. I don't really have much to say about this game that I haven't already said before. Now, now if you want a game that you basically feel like an unstoppable beast in, boy, do I have the game for you. Especially if you're a fan of RoboCop. That's right, I finally played RoboCop Rogue City. Seeing one of my streamer buddies actually play it finally made me get off my ass and get it on a good Steam sale. Yes, it was cheaper later Steam sales than what I got it for at the time, but you know what? It was really worth every dollar because this game is so fucking good. RoboCop Rogue City sort of acts as a, I guess, in-betweequel, if you will, in the canon timeline between RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3. More specifically, RoboCop 2 basically, Detroit's crime wave is exacerbated by the introduction of the designer drug known only as Nuke, which is supplied by this cult-like Kane, and the police force, still being undermined by OCP, eventually actually follow through with another strike, pretty much like what happens in the first film. And RoboCop is also still struggling with memories of his past life and kind of stalking his former family. Well, that's how Wikipedia describes it. But you know, he's a machine, but also human. It's very complicated, you know. And it prompts OCP to try to do RoboCop 2, but unfortunately they cannot replicate it because that was a once in a lifetime ordeal. And plus, the guy who made RoboCop in the first place, well, if you've seen the first movie, you know what happens to him. And anyways, essentially, Rogue City itself, like I said, is an in-betweequel, essentially. And it still takes place, once again, in Delta City. Many characters from the first movie return, and essentially, if I could actually find a decent blurb of this... Yeah, I know, but I really want to go into detail. But basically... Oh, shit, how do I even describe the plot? Well, it sort of starts off as a hostage situation unveils, basically. And during a hostage situation going on, RoboCop suffers visions of his past life as Alex Murphy, and he hallucinates a female hostage as Murphy's wife, which basically causes issues. Things get captured on film, and bad press happens. So Max Becker, RoboCop's overseer, or is assigned by OCP, rather, installs a monitor chip to evaluate his performance. And essentially, it starts off by interrogating a particular bad guy, essentially, who is basically, once the new guy identifies himself, He is actually the brother of one of the members of Clarence Boddicker's gang from the original RoboCop. And essentially, he's out for revenge because of what happened. Lewis gets shot. RoboCop is seeking revenge, investigating and everything, as well as dealing with the nuke epidemic. I think that's a decent summary. If not, just go play it yourself alone. As if that's not enough, though, here. It's pretty much a standard first person shooter, but it's very cool with how it handles a lot of different things. Like, there's a lot of side quests, and you can choose how to solve them and select different dialogue options. And they can actually affect the outcome of these quests depending on your choices. You can actually choose between violence or a peaceful approach when trying to get interrogating suspects. It even somewhat alters the storyline and ending, so your choices actually do matter. Like, as long as you can, continue to fulfill RoboCop's main initiatives. The public trust score can be built up by interacting with citizens and how you handle other side quests and other run-ins. And even though there are other guns, let's be honest, the Auto 9 is the best one to use. And not only that, but once you basically upgrade it, which you find these sort of modules that give you these different paths with different abilities, and you plug in certain chips as well. It's kind of like a puzzle ordeal. You can actually max out and even get a fully automatic Auto 9, which, especially with the right module and chip alone, it can basically make RoboCop invincible. And even on the normal difficulty, you'll be cruising through bad guys faster than RoboCop in the warehouse scene in the first movie. That's not to say the game is a complete cakewalk. Oh no, far from it actually. Here, there's still a few tough bits. Like you eventually fight Ed 209 at some point in the old mill, and well, that was a crazy bit. It can get a little hectic towards the end, but you know what? I feel like I could say whatever here. It really, you should play through this game if you're a big RoboCop fan. You have no reason not to, especially because it's very easy to 100%. You can 100% it in one go. And it's just a fun game. That's really all there is to it. So yeah, go play RoboCop Rogue City. I will be trying to get Unfinished Business this year, which is the standalone expansion, and play through that because I really liked Rogue City so much. So I will be playing through the expansion. Now, going to other great games based on movies, we have Star Wars Dark Forces. This is one of those I barely spent any amount of time with whatsoever, but I genuinely wanted to go and play this fucking thing. And why? Because I've had it on my list for pretty much almost a decade by the time I actually sat down and played it. And plus, I had a yearning for classic Star Wars because I had too much old Star Wars stuff on my backlog for games. Really, the only other things I have now are the last two Jedi Knight games, Bounty Hunter, and I believe the two KOTOR games per my Steam list. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, that is correct. 5 of them. But let's focus on this one. Dark Forces puts you in the shoes of Kyle Katarn and starts basically before the events of the original film. And basically, Kyle Katarn is a mercenary working on behalf of the Rebel Alliance. At first, he basically is tasked with stealing the Death Star plans, which, congratulations, if that sounds familiar. You've probably seen Rogue One. And I know what you're thinking. Stop there? Well, no. I always said that I liked Rogue One out of all of the Disney Star Wars stuff, but that Rogue One essentially was done beforehand, and it was called Dark Forces. Well, there is some truth to that. The stealing the Death Star plans is only the opening. You see, the real events of the game happened 1 year after that opening mission of you stealing the Death Star plans. Kyle Katarn discovers the Galactic Empire's secret Dark Trooper project, which involves the development of a powerful new battle droids and power-armored stormtroopers. And there's a lot more. There's an encounter with Jabba and everything here. And there's a lot of other stuff. It's a very cool story, actually. I didn't even realize I played it for its 30th anniversary. Shit. Wow. To sum it up, this is basically just Doom, but with a Star Wars skin. And if that sounds appealing to you, congratulations. This is something you should probably go and play. However, there is a couple caveats with it, though, I will say. For starters, uh, there is a remastered version out there that Night Dive put out not long ago, but I played through the original. You can too if you still have it by using the Force Engine source port, which is something I used to basically play the original. So I didn't have to buy the remaster. And yes, I know the Dark Troopers technically became canon in season 6 or season 2, I mean, not that far. Season 2 episode 6 of Mandalorian, but it's not quite the same as it is here. Look, if you just like Doom and Star Wars, just play this game. It's very well worth it. Now, remember when I said earlier, by the way, that we were going to get to Bayonetta 3 eventually? Well, here it is, Bayonetta 3. Yeah, this game is not that good, honestly. I don't want to say fully bad, but if I'm being honest, I feel like Bayonetta 3 is a step back from the last two games. See, the main ordeal with it, even though it's very much a lot of the same ordeal as well, really, and there are a couple newer mechanics, some unique ones in this game here, like mainly the Demon Slave and Demon Masquerade, which differs from the Climax Summon and Umbran Climax in the first two games, which allows you to take control of one of Bayonetta's infernal demons to perform attacks and abilities, which can help you out. It kind of reminds me, too, of some of the bits from the Darkness where you could control, like, the claws here that Jackie Estacado has, and just go after that and do all sorts of other stuff. But honestly, I don't know. To be honest, the main thing about this whole thing is that Bayonetta is not even, like, almost feels like Bayonetta is, like, not even the main character. Because the whole thing about Bayonetta 3 is that it's a multiverse ordeal. And had I played this closer to before the concept got worn out, um, I may have also, been a bit more forgiving, but given that the multiverse stuff was very tiring, like, honestly, it really was. Like, it's gotten tired out. I don't know. Plus, I just was not a fan of the character of Viola, who's technically a witch in training, who fights alongside her demon familiar Cheshire, which I didn't also like those sections because I didn't like the way she felt to play as compared to Bayonetta. The Cheshire stuff felt clunky to a certain degree. I guess you could say the same about the other infernal demons, but not as much. And honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan of Jennifer Hale's portrayal of Bayonetta. Like, every time I heard her, all I could think was literally any other character she's voiced in a game, like Naomi Hunter in Metal Gear Solid. Fuck, there's probably more I'm thinking as well, but really, that's it. I will say, the little Spider-Man No Way Home moment with all three Bayonetta at the same time, that was kind of cool, but really, I don't know. I didn't like this one as much as 1 and 2. I still can't say you shouldn't play it if you don't have a Switch, but honestly, if you really like the first two games, you might want to temper your expectations for Bayonetta 3. And that concludes the month of May. Oh boy, June. June was a very big month as there was a lot of stuff I played. Unfortunately, not all of it was very particularly good. Case in point, this first game, Destroy All Humans, Big Willie Unleashed. Now, I did have some gripes with the second Destroy All Human game when I played the remake of it because of how it kind of makes you excess grind the side missions just to be even leveled up competently enough to beat the final boss. Well, let me tell you, that ain't got nothing on Big Willie Unleashed. And by the way, if you do decide to go through this exercise in torment that is this game right here, you are going to be hearing that pun a lot. But let me sum this up real quick about why this game is such a step down. It looks worse than even the original Destroy All Humans games from the PS2 and Xbox. The controls are terrible because it's a Wii game and it's hell on your wrist just to controlling the saucer alone, whereas it's much easier to do in the other games. Number 3, some of the gameplay checkpoint flow design is awful. There's no checkpoints in any of the missions, and some of the later ones, you make one mistake, not only do you basically have to do it again, but you actually have to go back to the starting point and then re-trigger the mission and do it again. It got so fucking egregious with how awful a lot of this is. The bad controls combined with the bad mission design made for an absolutely unfun experience. But the worst insult in this entire excuse of a game, the humor. Now, this is something I don't normally talk about with a lot of games, but I feel like it especially applies here. Because I've always thought about when someone asks me, what are the funniest games you've ever played? I would definitely say the South Park Stick of Truth. I would definitely say Stubbs the Zombie. God Hand is kind of funny in a weird way, and of course, the two Destroy All Humans games. Part of what makes those games so funny is the absurdist nature of them. If you like movies like Save the Green Planet and Mars Attacks, you will absolutely love the humor in Destroy All Humans 1 and 2. And since in the remake it's pretty much the same script as it was in the originals, you're in good hands. Honestly, those two are some of the funniest games I've ever played. The comedy practically just writes itself with Crypto going in and doing what he does best. Unfortunately, somehow the Locomotive games somehow did not get the memo that Pandemic did when they made the original two Destroy All Humans games and decided to do big, stupid innuendos. I mean, the subtitle, Big Willie Unleashed, is a fucking stupid innuendo. Every time I have to hear fucking Pac say Big Willie or something to that effect here, if I could just find the clip just to show you how I feel, like every time I hear my Big Willie, Big Willies, Big Willies, every time I'm tempted to yell this at him. I don't know what the hell the script writers were thinking. And not to mention, there's some stuff in there. There's like a side story. Natalia from the second game is completely written off in an utter horrible fashion, too. There's this stupid subplot, side missions of this character going around screwing up a lot of other Cryptos' goals he's trying to do, his side goals. And apparently, it's the lost love child, apparently, of the two. What? Why should I care? I already hate this asshole anyways. It's just terrible. And I think I said in my post-mortem short that there is no way in hell that that Path of the Furon can be worse than this. If I'm eating my words for this, just somebody spell them out in pepperoni and put it on a fucking pizza, because quite frankly, maybe I'll have to eat a lot for that. But you know what? I still stand by that for the moment, that there's no way in hell Path of the Furon can be worse than Big Willie Unleashed. Yeah, you know what? Don't fucking play this one. It's awful. It's a step down. Now for a game that kind of was... I don't know how you even go into it. Twisted Metal 2012. Simply known as just Twisted Metal, but I add the subtitle because it came out in 2012 exclusively on the PlayStation 3. This is actually the second reboot in the Twisted Metal series following Twisted Metal Black, which was my introduction to the series, and a damn good one at that. I even liked Twisted Metal Head On, actually. I thought that was a pretty fun game for what it was worth. Unfortunately, this one... it's very inconsistent. There are moments of fair fun in this game, but they are also compounded by some not nice mission design. When you're doing standard Twisted Metal, blow up things, battling bosses, and just trying to win, it's fine. But there are some races in there that are egregious, which is not something you would expect for a game like this. Because, well, if you know Twisted Metal, you know what Twisted Metal is actually here. It's vehicular combat, not vehicular racing. If I wanted racing and smashing cars, or I could play Burnout, or hell, if I wanted guns, there's full auto as an option. But this, I don't know. I don't know if it's the worst Twisted Metal game. I haven't played any of the original PlayStation 1 games, but out of the ones I have played, this is definitely at the bottom. And I'm pretty sure Twisted Metal 1 and 2 would probably destroy it. The only ones I could see 2012 having a head up on with are 3 and 4, the 989 Studios Twisted Metal games, as opposed to the first two Twisted Metals. But I don't know. But yeah, I don't have much more to say about Twisted Metal on PS3. Now, here's a very unique game that I'm sad, quite frankly, has gotten, it feels like somewhat forgotten about, but I don't know. It's a very unique shooter, actually, known as Army of Two, that was made by EA and came out in the PlayStation 3 and 360 era on Unreal Engine 3. Now, what makes this game unique is that it has a very unique cooperative system in it, essentially. And so you could play this in co-op, either locally. You used to be able to do it online, but the multiplayer no longer exists. It was shut down only a few years after the game came out because EA sucks. But even in single player, it's a pretty interesting third person shooter, I mean, at a time when that genre really just dominated the PlayStation 3 and 360 generation, the 7th gen. I keep losing track of what's what. Um, the partner AI is something interesting as well, which will help follow your strategies. And it's so pronounced that most objectives are impossible to complete without it, but it's not too bad if you're playing in single player, even and you're just using an AI partner. The story is kind of interesting. It takes place over a bunch of many different years, actually. And it's still, I think, a pretty cool shooter with a unique look to it, honestly. Yeah, please play Army of Two. You can probably still play it cooperative locally, which is fine. But yeah. Anyways, going back to the Star Wars games, here's one I actually wanted to do that I had not had a chance to play until after I beat Dark Forces 1, and it took me a while to get through this one. But this is Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. Considering this, Quake 2 and Half-Life came out within a very short lifespan, like short time within each other, first-person shooter fans are eating good. Although, let's be honest, if you were especially a Star Wars fan and you wanted Jedi action, this was the game especially to do it. Dark Forces 2 takes place 1 year after Return of the Jedi, and once again follows Kyle Katarn working for the New Republic. Eventually, through a series of happenstances and some tragedy, he discovers his connection to the Force and the Valley of the Jedi, which is an ancient source of power. And basically, he wants revenge on the evil Sith Lord who killed his dad, Jarek. Yeah, and he wants to find the valley before Jarek and his Sith forces do. This game was such a technical leap over the original game. It was no longer just Doom. Some could say it was Quake in a way, but with a Star Wars skin. But I think the Jedi lightsaber stuff absolutely kind of just changes it so much. Because now you have melee combat here that is what you would expect from a Star Wars game. Not to mention, you have all these force powers, force jumping to get up to higher places you couldn't, force pulling enemies and objects toward you, or pushing them away from you, and all sorts of other stuff. A branching path that allows you to take either the dark or the light side. And not to mention, full motion video cutscenes with actual live actors. Now, in 1997, this shit was so cool, and the way I look at those cutscenes still, they almost look like an actual Star Wars film. And the more I look at it, the more I wish we got an adaptation of the Dark Forces / Jedi Knight series as actual movies instead of the sequel trilogy. Like, actually properly adapting them from game to screen. Like, the more I think about it and the more I go through these, the more I wish we had got that. Dark Forces 2 is worth a playthrough, definitely. Now in June, we go back to the console backlog busting stuff here on stream, and we go through Asura's Wrath. Now, this is a game I had always wanted to play for a while because I've heard of its unique theming and kind of in a way how it may or may not have been somewhat God Hand may or may have not somewhat played an influence in this game. I know it's like the second time I've mentioned that game here. Maybe third. I don't even know right now, quite frankly. Uh, but yeah, Asura's Wrath takes elements from Hindu and Buddhist mythologies and blends them with sci-fi and gives them this whole anime thing. As demigod Asura seeks revenge on the pantheon of other demigods who betrayed him. It is actually a very unique presentation too that not many other games have, I really think, followed since. It's like your style and format of an episodic series of cinematic scenes, including a full-on intro and outro cutscene. But it's not like the Telltale games per se, because this shit is more presented like an anime. You could even see JoJo's Bizarre Adventure like influence in it as well. And like I said, if you're a fan of anime, you will probably love the presentation of this game. I really don't think anything like it has been done before or even since. Not to mention, there's a mix of variety of gameplay which actually blends a lot better than you would think. Third-person combat, rail shooter, and quick time events. It's kind of described as an interactive anime. But yeah, I think its style is present, uniquely presented. It is an interesting game to play. I hate what they did with the DLC, how they locked the real ending behind it, though. It's a bigger pain to get now if you're still playing on a console, because shockingly, this game has not been remastered and ported to modern consoles, which still befuddles me as to why it hasn't. It deserves to. More people deserve to play it. You shouldn't just be locked to have a PS3 or 360. Yes, you can have an Xbox One and on, but that's it, really. Yeah, please play Asura's Wrath. It's worthy of it. And the last one to close out June is a very conflicting game. Golden Axe Beast Rider. Now, I had known about this game for some time, really ever since it came out, but not getting a PS3 or 360 until 2 years afterwards, I basically kind of forgot about it, especially with the critical reception, because this game was not well received. But you know what, actually? I don't actually think this game is that bad. Oh, it has a few bad sections that aren't really that fun and drag on and feel like you're stuck in a loop and you just have to slay endless enemies, which isn't really good game design. But when it's not doing that, it's actually a very unique hack and slash kind of not really side throwing, but 3D hack and slash beat 'em up that has actually a little bit of strategy to it. I think also the darker story didn't really help. But also, I do think the the titular beast riding elements are fun actually at a certain point. And the game actually still runs fine and doesn't actually look too bad. And you play as Tyrus, who is one of the original characters from the original game, though you'll still see Tarek and Gilius throughout. And you know what? This isn't actually that bad of a game. I really don't think it is. But I call it a great game? Not exactly. But if you've exhausted options for other hack and slashes of this era and you want something a little bit different and something that's not just mindlessly gunning away and hacking away at things, you might actually enjoy this game, as crazy as that may be to say for some. But yeah, I don't think this is actually that bad of a game. And that's going to close out June. July. July. This was not a very... Well, let's just say there was not a lot of streaming stuff done on this front because it was convention month for me here. So I was busy, and not to mention at this point, I finally went to one of a anime convention that I had been going to for a while, but I finally was actually able to stay at the hotel where it was happening at all by myself for a change, so there wasn't a lot of action on this front. But I did at least beat a few things off my console backlog from some of my pickups from 2025 at the Palooza. starting with Batman Begins. Now, I don't think I need to say much about the movie. It pretty much revived Batman on film after the crazy insanity, probably hot mess that was Batman and Robin. Basically kicked off a whole new set of films. Really, I think put Christopher Nolan as a film director in a whole new ordeal. And even though the game received mixed reviews when it came out, I think this is one of the better movie based games out there. It's basically an action adventure game that incorporates both beat 'em up and stealth elements, which kind of makes sense. It basically pretty much follows the plot of Batman Begins to a T, although there are some minor modifications, such as the introduction of scenes absent from the film or expanding upon certain events. There's actually over 20 clips that basically serve as your in game cutscenes between levels, and I thought doing it around the time of the 20th anniversary of the film was very fitting. And many of the actual cast from the actual movie do reprise their roles. Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Cillian Murphy, the late Tom Wilkinson, Morgan Freeman. Let's see here. Hold on a minute. Yeah, Tim Booth, Mark Boone Jr., and hold on a second. I just want to double cross. Yeah, even Ken Watanabe. Not to mention Batman Begins producer and wife of Christopher Nolan, Emma Thomas, and cinematographer of the film, Wally Pfister, have cameo appearances as an Arkham Asylum doctor and a Falcone mobster, respectively. The only person who doesn't reprise his role in the game is, well, Gary Oldman, which is a shame, but I mean, what can you do, really? It is what it is. Still, I think if you like the movie a lot, you will probably still enjoy this game. I definitely could see the foundations of the Arkham games sort of in here to a certain degree, but those were obviously a bit more open world, at least Arkham City and Arkham Knight were. I don't know about Asylum. That one was a bit more linear, so it's probably more like this in nature. But I do think this is an enjoyable game, and fans of Batman or who want a decent action adventure game who enjoyed the movie look no further than here. It is kind of sad that we never got a full-on sequel. There was going to be a full-on Dark Knight game made by Pandemic to come out on PS3 and 360, but unfortunately it never happened because EA canceled it because it was not going to meet the December 2008 deadline because it kept getting pushed back and back and back. Yeah, and we all know sadly what happened with Pandemic. Oh well. Continuing on July, and remember when I said Wii games, some of them haven't really aged particularly well when it comes to certain controls? Well, look no further than this game right here, Red Steel. I'd always known about the mixed reception this game had, but I still wanted to give this a fair shot for myself. Well, this game is a big, hot, steaming pile of mid. This thing came out as a launch title for the Wii and was made by Ubisoft and their Paris division. I do think it kind of has a unique look to it and a cool story as well, and the soundtrack is kind of nice. Unfortunately, because this was an early Wii game, the controls are not particularly good. Not so much the shooting, it's when it actually comes to the sword play, which you do quite a bit. The way the game wants you to handle it, it doesn't really always work. It tries to make you fight with a little bit of strategy, but it's not always going to work, and there's more times where you'll get your ass handed. More often than not, actually just slashing away like a maniac, too, when you get a chance here, will basically do. So you still have to be a little bit strategic, but you have to be careful as well. It's just, I don't know. It feels like the whole sword thing could have been skipped entirely. But, I don't know. There was some other nice things as well. Basically, such as the Wii remote speaker being used as a kind of telephone speaker that you can place against your ear. I think that's kind of cool and unique. I know that's not the only game that used the speaker in a creative function. The WiiWare game Lit did, the Mad Dog McCree Gunslinger Pack, and Bastrop Showdown for that matter, had your gun sounds coming out of the Wiimote, which was kind of cool. Other than that, with this game, it also just kind of dragged ass, and by the end, I was just wanted this shit to be over. Yeah, this one, people proceed with caution on this one. On the other hand, if you want to skip Red Steel 1 and go to Red Steel 2, nobody would blame you. What a fucking upgrade. Red Steel 2 controls so much better than Red Steel 1 thanks to the advent of the Wii Motion Plus. The swordplay has also been reworked as well, so it actually functions as it should. It's got a cool cel shaded look to it with a unique look. And by and large, Red Steel 2 is actually a very good game for the Wii. It's honestly one of my favorites on the entire system. You wouldn't think it would be, but yeah, and not to mention you can freely use your gun and sword. You're not locked to either one at a specific point, so you can go as crazy as you want whenever you want. The combat is fun. There's a lot of upgrades to it. And there's a decent amount of side stuff too as well. And you know what? Yeah, Red Steel 2 is so much fucking better than the original game by a long shot. Like if you skip Red Steel 2 and or you go skip Red Steel 1 and go to Red Steel 2, yeah, I would not blame you for that, honestly. It is just a better game all around than the first, and it's a lot of fun. And that closes out July. Well, don't worry. August was a busy month. It picked back up when I got back into the normal swing of things, starting with Army of Two the 40th Day. Now, I had picked up Army of Two thanks to the almighty Hoff Geese at a Retropalooza Houston in 2025, but I could not find either of the game's sequels. I went to my local movies and game shop and found it on the 360 for a good price, so I picked it up, and here we are. Army of Two the 40th Day is the direct sequel to Army of Two, and finally does something that the first game should have done that Gears of War did 2 years prior, but they finally implemented it here, a proper cover system. And once again, basically, you play as the same two guys from the first game, Tyson Rios and Elliot Salem, and you're doing a lot of the same thing of what you're doing here, though. It's pretty much the same thing. You're going around shooting bad guys, working together to solve things. Although the co-op is somewhat redefined here, and there are some other interesting things about it too, compared to the first. Well, first of all, the co-op playbook has entirely been expanded upon and refined from the original game. You can use co-op moves at any time, so you can always scan enemies prior to engaging them to set up a particular team-based tactic, which helps a lot. And you can basically mock surrender of your enemies, and you can set up simultaneous sniper shots, which are very helpful in some instances, in addition to using aggro, which basically allows you to control the target of your enemy's attacks and change the outcome of a firefight. By performing aggressive actions like attacking enemies, you generate aggro, and in turn, enemies will focus more of their attention on you and less attention on the one with less aggro, which means they can be ignored and they can sneak up, flank, snipe, and do whatever else. Also, additional non-aggressive actions can affect your aggro as well. Like your mock surrender, enemies will focus all their attention on the player that is fake surrendering, so the other person can again sneak up and attack. And they can all be done cooperatively as well. On top of that, there are some actual morality choices as well that you can make. At several points in the game, you're presented with a choice. Now, it's not a vote between two players, but either player must decide while the other player is forced to accept the ramifications of that decision regardless of what their preference was. And yeah, and there was some multiplayer again in addition to co-op. You had some other moments, but unfortunately those are taken out. It definitely feels a lot more streamlined and less frustrating in many instances than the previous game. I mean, the previous game really wasn't, but there were a few moments that kind of got out of control. I don't know if I can say the same about this one here. Although towards the end, one of the bits here was kind of frustrating about where to go, and having to restart it was annoying. But for the most part, the game is fine, and I do think the setting of Shanghai is unique, which I don't think too many games of that, at least of this ilk, seeing it all shot to hell. And yeah, if you like the first Army of Two, definitely play the second. I will try to play the Devil's Cartel this year, but I do not own it. If I pick it up, you will hear about it. But other than that, let's just keep going. And the last one I played of the Jedi Knight series was Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. Now, this is actually an expansion pack, which has a new single-player story mode that may be a little shorter than the first, depending on it. I don't know. Now you have both returning protagonists, Kyle Katarn again, who's now a full-on Jedi Master, and a character that I think many people who are familiar with the EU for Star Wars stuff, that I'm pretty sure the modern ilk of Lucasfilm will want you to forget even exists, Mara Jade. So Mara Jade is basically Kyle Katarn's apprentice, and you start off playing as him at first here, and he's investigating an ancient Sith temple, but then he disappears. And so eventually then it's up to Mara Jade, who you end up playing most of the game with anyways, as it's up to her to find what happened to Kyle Katarn and undertake missions from the New Republic. Since this is just an expansion pack, it very much plays a lot like Jedi Knight 2 Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. The naming confusing of these games is absolutely ridiculous, by the way. It's like what happened with Rambo, where the first movie is called First Blood, and the second one is called Rambo First Blood Part 2, and by the third they completely drop First Blood. Again, it's like what happens with Dark Forces. Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, then Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. Or never mind that. If you skip the expansion, it's Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, but never mind that shit. Anyways, there are some technical improvements too, like colored lighting, new textures and models, better AI, which actually there are some selections in both of these games that are not slouches, and you need to be careful. And it puts more emphasis though on lightsaber and force powers, which is fine to a certain degree, because that honestly I think was the most fun with the combat in Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. I mean, once you started in Jedi Knight, I mean, once you got the lightsaber, that's it. Although the guns were kind of handy for getting out of a pinch, but otherwise, I don't know. It definitely feels like the difficulty is the main thing, because it feels inconsistent. It can kind of drag on. It's like there's not a lot of like first-person shooters from this era that honestly I feel aren't as maze-like heavy after a certain point. I mean, I think the best one that handled this was Quake 2, if that tells you anything. But you know what? I still think this is a solid game just on the basis of the story alone. And hopefully that both this and the previous game, the original Dark Forces, will get remastered by Night Dive like Dark Forces 1 did. Although I am kind of not a fan also as well of the fact that the FMV cutscenes are gone. Yeah, it just, if you love a lot of like the EU stuff, this is what you need to look for right here, because yeah, this and the previous one will be good. The previous games in general. I have not played through Jedi Outcast or Jedi Academy. I do have them. The thing is, I use the source port, the Force engine for Dark Forces. I used Open Jedi Knight JKDF2 for both Mysteries of the Sith and Jedi Knight. You are able to play through them with those to make them easier on modern platforms, modern computers. Unfortunately, with Jedi Outcast, it's kind of a pain, and that's what's stopping me there. I'm going to try to see if I can do it at some point, so I can play through the last two this year and check those off my list. I could actually just emulate the Xbox version or play that either on my 360 or OG Xbox, because I have my cousin's old copy. I'm still taking good care of it. And Jedi Academy, well, that one I can play through with the source. I don't know. I still want to play it and check it off my Steam list. That's the whole point of it. But yeah, Mysteries of the Sith is fine if you like the previous game. Now, going to one of the last major World War II Call of Duties, Call of Duty 3. Now, this was actually made by Treyarch and was a big title going into 2006. This is the only COD game not to get a PC release. And for the most part, I feel like you can start to see the inklings and the feeling and flow of the game with how COD 3 plays. Because it's basically a World War II sort of ordeal. You're operating between 3 different campaigns. You play between Private Nichols, who's a replacement for the 29th Infantry Division. For the British/French resistance, you play Sergeant James Doyle, who returns from COD United Offensive, which was an expansion for the original game. You have the Canadian campaign. You play as Private Joseph Cole of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders of Canada. And for the Polish campaign, you play as Corporal Bohater Wojciech. I cannot pronounce it, but let's just call him Corporal Bohater, a Sherman Firefly driver in the Polish 1st Armored Division. Really, this is pretty much what it is. I don't feel like I can say a lot about this that hasn't already been said. This is probably the best console COD game of the console exclusive COD games, because you had Finest Hour and Big Red 1, and then this. Although Big Red 1 is a close second and Finest Hour title. Because 3 finally had the smoothness that we eventually would come to know with later Call of Duty games. Before that whole thing ran into the ground. It's kind of sad to see what COD has just fucking fell into. It's really just sad. Oh, we used to have it so good. Now look. Now going from a completely different ordeal, but a major big one here that I was to knock off my list, was the 2018 remake on the PlayStation 4 of Shadow of the Colossus. Now, this was made by Bluepoint, who did the PlayStation 3 remaster with assistance from Japan Studio, who, I'm pretty sure it was them. Well, no. Kind of, sort of. Yeah, it was. But specifically Team Ico, because they originally made Ico, or Eco, or whatever. And then eventually they made Shadow of the Colossus. Now, the learning process of this game, it's like a boss ordeal, basically. But at the same time, you're learning how to grasp the game itself. There is at least some guiding options here to help guide you in the right direction, so you don't feel entirely lost here. I'm not sure if that was the case in the original PS2 version, since I never played it. But from what I've seen here, that if you were to jump into the remake, you would still get the same amazing game practically that you got on the PS2, but it runs so much better because you can run it at 60 frames per second if you're playing on a PlayStation 4 Pro. It's the same story as the original, and by and large, it is such a very cool game. Like, all the acclaim it has gotten, and then some, is completely worthy. It's a very beautiful looking game, has a very powerful story with a lot of emotion, and makes you think a lot too. Every time you figure out how to take out these bosses, it's very rewarding when you do so, and you feel like you're getting closer and closer to the end. The battles themselves are just very fun and epic in many different ways. And it's just, I think it's a very rewarding game, and I can't even say much more. If you still have not played Shadow of the Colossus, you need to fucking play it. It is one of the best video games ever made. It's definitely in my top PlayStation 4 games that I've played, and it's a fun one. And to close out August, I thought I wanted to knock off a particular series, because the only Gears of War game I had ever played up to this point was Gears of War 3. Because I was the best that I heard, and yeah. I thought that would be enough, but eventually, through acquiring Judgment from my local game store a good while back, and then finding Gears of War 2 at the Palooza, I thought this was fucking time. So, and what was coming out around this same time? In a rare instance of me actually picking up a game at launch, and not only getting it at launch, but actually playing through it and then playing through every other Gears game that I had missed up to this point, except the later ones, Gears of War Reloaded. Because it finally came to Steam. Now, Gears of War Reloaded is actually an enhanced port based on Ultimate Edition, which itself is a remaster of the original game from the 360 and PC era. This was developed primarily by the Coalition, although the original was done by Epic Games. Reloaded was done by the Coalition in collaboration with Sumo Digital and Disbelief. But for the most part, it is pretty much the exact same um, game that was seen beforehand. The only real difference is that Reloaded finally came out on PlayStation and Steam, meaning not only was Gears of War finally free from Steam from the Microsoft Store hell for the most part because they never ported Ultimate Edition to Steam, which is still stupid, but whatever. But it was the first time a major Xbox franchise was ever made available on non-Xbox consoles in Gears of War, and this wouldn't be the only one. See the Golden Child in Halo, but maybe we can talk about that later. But basically, it was an updated port, enhanced 4K 60 frames and 120 frames for multiplayer, supporting HDR and variable refresh rate displays and spatial audio technology. All post-launch DLC from Ultimate Edition is here, including the bonus campaign, multiplayer maps, and player cosmetics. If you're using a Microsoft account, you can unlock full cross progression for the campaign and multiplayer components, and cross-platform invites multiplayer for multiplayer and co-op campaign. So it doesn't matter whom. You could be on PC and your friend has a PS5 and you two can play together, and any other combination here. And yeah, it's not hard to see why Gears of War became so beloved. The story is pretty epic, the gameplay is fun, especially the Ultimate Edition here, which adds a lot of good technical improvements. Like just being able to play at a higher frame rate alone makes a world of difference. Like it really actually does. It's a lot smoother with a keyboard and mouse here. Although there are some frustrating bits in this game here, I ain't even gonna sugarcoat it. There always seem to be. You just have to get used to it. Although the PC version had some bad technical issues at launch, I do feel like it probably has been patched since. But thing is, I would say Reloaded is only good for those who did not play the original. If you already had, there's not much of a reason to get it, like outside of a sale, really. But yeah, the action is intense. The third person shooting thing finally further refined what Kill Switch from the PS2 era started. Story is still great. Um, it's just a great game, honestly. Gears of War. It's not hard to see why it was beloved. And you thought the Gears of War train stopped there? No, no. We continued with Gears of War 2, what many people consider the true peak. And the story is even better in this one, too, than it is the first. The fight against the Locust continues as well as Dom trying to find his wife, Maria, and. Oh boy. Not only do I think this is still a very solid game to play, but holy fuck, the story will hit you in the feels at a certain point. I mean, fuck, when the big bit happens, it actually did something that no game on stream ever managed to make me do, and that's actually get me emotionally choked up because, I mean, if you've seen it, I mean, how can you not, really? I mean, it's one of the fucking saddest moments, I think, in any video game I've ever actually played. And very few games have actually gotten me emotionally on the verge of tears, but that one scene in Gears of War 2 absolutely did it, and I kind of applaud it for that. Aside from all the usual stuff as well, the standard gameplay stuff, it's always fun to slice enemies with the Lancer friggin' chainsaw bayonet here. There's all sorts of other cool weapons you can use. There's still a bit of strategy, of course. You still have to be careful with everything. Um, yeah, honestly, Gears of War 2 is probably better than the first because it does what every good sequel should do. Improve upon the game, like graphically, gameplay wise, a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, I think I can see why people would say that Gears 2 is the best in the series. This one received widespread critical acclaim. And the fact that it still remains trapped, well, I mean, it is compatible with Xbox One and on, but so that we've never had a proper Marcus Phoenix collection of games, of the original games, on Steam and the like, and modern Xbox. That is sad, quite frankly, because this one especially deserves it because it is very good. Gears of War 2, loved it. Now we go to the last one that I needed to play catch up with, was Gears of War Judgment, which I mean, it's not really a full-on sequel. It's more of a prequel, and you mainly focus on Augustus Cole, Damon Bayard, and their squad Kilos. They're put on trial for disobeying orders 6 weeks after Emergence Day, which basically kind of kicked off the whole ordeal as well. The whole Locust ordeal, which basically set in motion the entire events of every game after this one here, the first and on. So it's fine, but it's pretty much again much of the same, but it does kind of try to do something a little bit different. Rather than your standard Halo-like campaign presentation, Gears of War Judgment does a lot more score-based criterias, which, yes, I know it gives you a goal basically to work towards so you get better at the game, but it honestly just feels tacked on too. And I get that it also tries to maybe make some more strategy, but going from the other games to this, that's not really what Gears of War ever truly was about. It never really was. And it's kind of a shame that it does take this. I get for multiplayer at least why you would focus on that sort of thing, but here, I don't know. I get why this has a mixed reception from the fans. I don't think it's a bad game, far from it. It is enjoyable if you like the others, but you might want to tamper your expectations a little bit if you're expecting something like the other games. Oh boy, and speaking of tamper your expectations, oh fuck this game. Sonic and the motherfucking secret rings. Oh my god. Out of every Sonic game I played, I'm just gonna cut straight to the chase. This is the worst one of the bunch. Like, remember when I said the Red Steel Wii controls were bad? Well, this game's controls make Red Steel's controls look actually fucking competent. Sonic and the Secret Rings, while it has a lot of good visual stuff going on and maybe some other decent story things, it completely fails in its control aspects and some bad gameplay design choices in certain levels, with a lack of certain checkpoints and other bits that are only further agitated by the fucking motion controls. I bet you're wondering, is it really as bad as everyone says it is? Yes, it is as bad as everyone says it is. At least with Sonic Free Riders, I can get a full body cardio workout on par with many of the beach body workouts from that era. This game, I can honestly say that by the end of it, my forearms hated me. So I'm going to do something a little bit different for a change here. I'm going to recommend you don't play this on original hardware. Instead, I'm going to introduce you to a little recreation called Project Reignition. What is Project Reignition, you ask? Project Reignition is a fan-made recreation of Sonic and the Secret Rings in Godot engine. This remake completely aspires to port the game to play with actual physical controls, like an actual Xbox or PlayStation controller. That's right. No more having to deal with weird control schemes in Dolphin. This is what you need to do here. And it's going to have a bunch of other quality of life improvements. Right now, that will just make the game so much better to play. Right now, the game, unfortunately, is only in alpha right now. The latest release came out back in September, but it's version 0.4.2. But I really highly recommend you take a look at it. This was made by a guy known as Kuma Paws, and I'll try to link the YouTube channel down there. If I forget, somebody just remind me in the comments, and I'll put it in the description so you can follow the project, follow the Twitter, the Discord, and you can see the project of this. Because when that fully comes out of its completion, that is something I want to actually restream because I want to have a better experience than I did with the original Secret Rings. Black Knight, I will can now definitively say is the better of the two Sonic storybook games. And that one you'll be mostly fine on Wii hardware because all the mistakes I was making there was kind of my own fault the more I look back at it. Not with Secret Rings. I tried with it. Just don't play it on the Wii. Follow Project Reignition and play that when it fully is complete. Or play it now and get a taste of what you can expect. And speaking of, well, we go from one thing remake, unfucking one game, to a remake completely fucking another one in House of the Dead 2. I already made a review of this game. Please go watch that. I'm not talking about this garbage anymore. Screw this. And here I thought I was done talking about bad games. Before we go on to the Horror Fest stuff that I did this year, we have to talk about this piece of shit. Now, I did play some bad games this year. I'll admit it. Between Sonic and the Secret Rings and the House of the Dead 2 remake, that was rough. And that's not even counting Destroy All Humans Pig Willy Unleashed. But Saints Row 2022 hurt. Like, honest to God, it actually hurt me in a way that no other video game I think ever could. Those of you who know me personally know I was and still am a massive fan of the original Saints Row games. Okay, really maybe more so 2 and 3. 1 is 2. If you played on an original 360, you're a masochist. Played on an Xbox One and on. Sadly, that thing never got a PC port, which the late Idle Ninja wanted to do, but never got a chance to. God rest his soul. Saints Row 4 is basically Saints Row, or Infamous with a Saints Row skin. Get Out of Hell is eh. And while I liked Agents of Mayhem, it's not really a Saints Row game. Man, the rug getting pulled from under us with that little teaser that Volition had. That little teaser image. I'll see if I can put it up on screen. But remember that little teaser image where we thought we were going back to the OG games? Yeah, fucking Volition, Deep Silver, THQ Nordic, and all the fucking brass thought it would be a good idea to go up to us and slap us in the face harder than Will Smith did to Chris Rock. For a while I had avoided this game. I did eventually pick it up on a sale because I knew someday I was going to have to suffer through this. And 2025 ended up being the year that I did so. Oh, God. This is not a good game, people. The whole tone is off. Even skipping through the story cutscenes will not actually save you from the awful thing that this game does that I hated what Arkham Knight did. Remember how in Arkham Knight you had to do all the side quests just to get the actual ending, including those stupid Riddler trophies? Well, you have to do all the side stuff and the fucking Empire stuff in Saints Row here. The ventures just to get the actual ending here too. And it is a slogging grind. Somehow it took me less time to get the actual ending for this game than it did for Batman Arkham Knight. But at least Arkham Knight had a more interesting open world. This game's open world is just barren. If you take a helicopter, right, and you fly from one end of the map to the other, even with maxed out graphics, it's just so barren. You would think a desert setting here could be something interesting, but it's really actually not. And when you see the whole world, it's like It's not as good as Stillwater in the first two games, or even Steelport in 3 and 4. Hell, the world in Agents of Mayhem is better than this shit. Oh, God. And my main character looked like friggin' Tom Holland as Iron Boy Jr. I mean Spider-Man. But no, it really was full-on Iron Boy Jr. The whole plot is ridiculous how it gets in certain points. It is so far removed from whatever the hell any of the original two games were, never mind 3 and 4. Eli looks like friggin' Steve Urkel could actually beat the crap out of him. Kevin is probably the worst character Greg Chun has ever voiced, and that dude voiced Yagami in Judgment. Yeah, how's that for a striking image? Same voice actor, two completely opposite characters. And the whole game is just so detached. It's dragged out to hell because of the ventures, just to get the actual ending. And what do you get for the actual ending? Well, you thought it was bad and Destroy All Humans, Big Wooly Unleash, how you had the frickin' YMCA? Well, try the B-52's Love Shack on for size. Yeah, you know what? Even if you're a fan of the other Saints Row games, the originals, don't fucking play this game. I'm just gonna straight up say it. Do not play this piece of shit. Go watch Mr. Saint's Godzilla video about what could have been. I know part 2 is not officially out yet as of writing this, and I'm gonna double check right now, but rest assured you, his fucking breakdown of everything, of how this game morphed into the utter mega failure that it ended up being, is nothing short of someone should have been fired and sued for malpractice. And the worst part, I'm pretty sure that was already a consequences, as this was the last game Volition ever did before they shut down. Quite frankly, to close it out, it's a very, very sad note for a company that once made the original Saints Row games, Descent 1 and 2 when they were Parallax Software, as well as Descent Free Space and Free Space 2, Summoner 1 and 2, the Punisher game. Oh, God. Saints Row 2022 fucking hurt. Don't play it. Now let's talk about actual good shit. I played a lot of spooky games for the month of October, as I normally do, and we started with the Dead Space remake. And this remake basically took the original game and put it out for modern platforms. It updated the graphics. It basically made Isaac now actually able to talk as opposed to a silent protagonist. And there was also a whole new peeling system to tear and destroy the bodies of necromorphs. Some weapons have been improved, so they're better at dicing and slicing limbs off many enemies. There's also the zero gravity element is improved, so you're more easily able to move around. You don't have to purchase weapons here to use blueprints. They're now just acquired throughout the story here. You can still upgrade stuff through power nodes, but you have to find different suit blueprints or weapon parts in different areas of the Ishimura. And there's just so much more improvements in it too, that by and large, if you were to play this first as opposed to the original, I wouldn't blame you entirely. The remake was very well done, and it also really still captures the atmosphere very well of the original game. Like, honestly, it's just a very solid remake. This is definitely one of the best remakes of any video game, right up there, along with the Resident Evil remake. Not necessarily in transforming the gameplay, but still just very much improving and other subtle tweaks and everything. And this was definitely, I'd say, worthy of its acclaim as well. And if you haven't played Dead Space, you can definitely start with the remake, and I promise you, you're in for a good time. I think I even enjoyed it more the second go around. Continuing this, since Alan Wake 2 isn't coming to fucking Steam anytime soon because Epic Mega Games is not really Epic nor Mega anymore. They're just a bunch of, yeah, I don't even have any words. I ended up playing through Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which I got stupidly cheap. it's more of a spin-off, but also part follow-up. Originally on the 360 as well, but got its PC release not long after. It's very much a lot like the first game, but the plot is set up very differently. It's set up basically through like sort of like the show within the game Night Springs, like an episode of that essentially. And basically it's such a weird plot. I can't even begin to describe it too. But I guess the best way I could sum it up, because basically Alan is trying to chase down the Herald of Darkness, his evil doppelganger, Mr. Scratch, who wants to take away everything he loves, including his wife Alice. His wife Alice, if I could speak right. And he has the ability to rewrite reality and escape his wrote his escape, of course. But he ends up in Night Springs, Arizona, and he was missing from the real world for 2 years. Essentially, what ends up happening basically is if you've ever seen the movie Run Lola Run or Edge of Tomorrow, the whole flow of the game is basically set up like that. So you end up kind of doing the same things, but the plot acts differently, and there are subtle differences to make each run of the events slightly different. So, if you are a fan of those movies, or you understand the time mechanic from Majora's Mask, although that's very much might be a bit different from this. I'm not sure. I've never played Majora's Mask, but I can definitely say this is like Edge of Tomorrow and Run Lola Run to a certain degree with how it's set up. That doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It just means that something is a little bit more different from how you handle it. It's also a lot shorter than the original game, and I beat it in one stream. Uh, but yeah, I do think that it's still worthy of a playthrough because it's not particularly long, but it's not really Alan Wake 2. Look, I want to play this Alan Wake 2 one day. I really do. But until, God forbid, maybe fucking what's his god dang name? I can't even forget because Cliff Bleszinski I don't think is even there anymore. Yeah, Tim Sweeney get his head out of his own candy ass with all this shit because I don't have a PS5 and I won't, nor will I have an Xbox Series X/S anytime soon, and give us what we want proper. Although you kind of have to blame Remedy because they took the bait twice. Once for Control, which at least you can get that on Steam, and I know I need to play that because the new one's coming out. And then they took the bait again here. It makes you feel kind of betrayed because Remedy makes very, very good games. Oh well. Here's one that actually at least did get remastered and came out on modern platforms and Steam for the first time. Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered. Plain and simple, this is the best way to play this game because now you can play at 60 FPS. Now you can play with a keyboard and mouse, which is actually very nice. And furthermore, it's basically the same kick-ass game. In fact, I think I actually enjoyed it even more the second time, now that I had basically unleashed its true potential. Well, not me, but the people who made the remaster did, and I just basically was like, yeah, my assumption was proven right. I'm happy that this game got a remaster, but unfortunately, it still seems to be trapped in a very niche category. Quite frankly, Shadows of the Damned was a game I took a blind gamble on, just on the cover alone, with this Ash Williams looking like figure in Garcia Hotspur. And once I finally played through it for the second time on PC, in spite of a very mid PC port that basically still, how do I put this? Still has no actual graphical settings. A lot of stuff has to be configured. You can't even mod stuff in an INI unless it's a pre-rendered one here. And it's just... yeah, I don't know. I would just get it on sale, or if you really want to get it on console, you can. The frame rate's not going to drop, but I really just wanted to have this on my Steam library because it's one of my favorites of that era. Definitely something I would call a hidden gem, and absolutely one that you definitely should play. Shadows of the Damned. More people need to play Shadows of the Damned, and No One Lives Forever. Quite frankly, they just need to. Now, going on to going on for the last game of the Horror Fest was a big one, something in a series I had never played for a while. And furthermore, when the sequel was announced to get a remake, because that's actually a prequel to this one, and the third game, I figured this year, or 2025, was the time to finally play Fatal Frame. Now, Fatal Frame kind of falls in the same vein of many other survival horror games before, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. But Fatal Frame's combat is really what makes it unique, and you'll understand why it has the name in a minute. Basically, you have this camera, and what happens is you focus it on these ghosts, the spirits that want to hurt you. And when the lights go enough here and the signal is given, you can actually you snap a picture of them and it damages them because the film you use has this kind of whatchamacallit here, this kind of spiritual power that can attack evil ghosts. And if you can get them really close enough, you can actually do greater damage, but you have to be careful because if they touch you, they can actually hit you. And yeah, it's got a very unique plot. I love the setting for it too. And honestly, it's still a tough game at certain points, but I do think it's still worthy of a playthrough. Like genuinely, I don't know how much it can still have some clunkiness in it. Not a lot, maybe say like the old tank control games of yesteryear in survival horror, but you will have to be careful and know what to do with a lot of this. But it's very atmospheric and actually is genuinely scary. Even some parts had to get cut due to graphic content. And for going into this for a first time, I can honestly see why this is a very good game. I was very happy to finally play it. Now, I am aware that there is a remake coming out in March of 2026 that is going to be released on modern platforms, and I'm looking into playing that around Horrorfest, picking up where we left off for this year. But we're gonna see what happens. And to end the month of October, no, there was no other horror game, but something came upon me. A game that I had played a long time ago, but never really properly finished. I figured this was the year to finish it for its 20th anniversary. Midnight Club 3, or more specifically, the remix, which technically came out in 2006. Never mind that shit, though. Midnight Club 3. Honestly, this game absolutely was a pretty big deal when it came out. It was the first ever game in the series to have licensed cars. It had a big ass soundtrack too, and it really just oozed a particular style. Like car lovers alike, hip hop enthusiasts, a whole bunch of other styles too. Dub Magazine, which was urban custom car culture in Milan, and honestly, it's just a very fun driving game to play. Like I love the way it feels. When you get to the better cars, you feel like an utter badass who can basically crush through everything. The remix version is even better because it has a lot more cars, races, and music. And you have Tokyo Challenge, which features an Alter Tokyo map from Midnight Club 2, which is pretty cool. Which I still need to go back one day and finish that game. I know, I should have. I got stuck somewhere in Paris and stopped playing it. But yeah, the three cities chosen makes sense. The graphics are very good. It's got a great soundtrack with a good amount of variety. The customization is cool. And honestly, having suffered through both Street Racing Syndicate and Juiced and feeling let down, revisiting a game I actually played when it first came out, it was honestly very rewarding, and genuinely, this was something I had to go out of my way to master on Retro Achievements because, well, it might just be one of the best other racing games of this ilk, not unlike Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2. November's release was all about pure timing. See, we played Stranglehold to kick off the month, and I even streamed the game because why the hell not? Because it was not really a long game, anyways. Now, if you don't know what Stranglehold is, it is essentially the video game that is a pseudo sequel to the John Woo action film Hard Boiled, which John Woo pretty much was involved as a producer of the game himself. And if I could pull it up here for a minute. Oh, it doesn't even do it. And it doesn't have any of it on his Wikipedia page, but Tiger Hill Entertainment, which I'm assuming was a venture he had helped founded just for this purpose here, in addition to Midway's Chicago studio, which was the original arcade division as Midway. And then eventually that's what eventually became NetherRealm Studios, from the ashes, that is. So I'll say this much. This was all timed because I had this on GOG for a while when it hit its first good sale, so you could get it for like $2.50. However, getting the movie Hard Boiled was actually a bigger pain in the ass than that because it had been out of print for some time. Fortunately, the fine people at Shout Studios got the rights to the entire Golden Princess library of films, which included Hard Boiled, which got its first 4K release back in November of 2025, a couple months ago. And this March, I believe, is when it is coming out from Arrow Video, who is handling everything internationally. Yes, they are. And unfortunately, that's the one that's going to have the Atmos track, which actually kind of irks me. And it is the better release, but you know what? Never mind that shit. I'm double dipping anyways because Hard Boiled is my favorite action film that isn't Die Hard. Anyway, Stranglehold, technically, you can go into it without actually having seen Hard Boiled and not miss much since it doesn't really overall reference the events of the film. The thing that really connects, at least not that I noticed, and I played them so suddenly, the only other real thing that connects them is that they both have the same main character, Inspector Tequila Ewan, who is basically the main character of the original film, and furthermore is the main character of this game, which is essentially a Max Payne clone. But then again, Max Payne itself was kind of somewhat inspired by a lot of John Woo's intense action films like Hard Boiled and The Killer and Bullet in the Head, which I actually have Bullet in the Head sitting right here in my to-watch pile as we speak. The Shout 4K of it, Hong Kong Cinema Classics number 25, but I have not watched it at the time of writing this, so we'll see what happens. But basically, he wanted to take those types of movies that he had made and turn them into an interactive media format. So it's kind of like everything is around here in a weird way. Yeah, it's like full circle. You had those movies which influenced Max Payne, which in turn we now have another video game for. It's pretty much your standard third-person Unreal shooter, Unreal Engine 3 shooter, because yes, it did run on Unreal 3, but basically you're just fighting mainly throughout Hong Kong and Chicago, and you take covers behind walls, you can jump over things here, and enter a sort of slow-mo effect when you're jumping and shooting enemies in the air. You can use pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, assault rifles. You can dual wield certain weapons as well. And essentially, there's also these kind of Mexican standoffs as well that happen at some point. These duels where enemies will fire at you and you have to basically dodge and then move your cursor over to them and shoot them while being locked in, but you can only move side to side, like to dodge. Not to mention, you can earn stars for stylish kills and taking out enemies with the environment, encouraging you to look for other creative ways and more efficient ways to kill enemies as well. And there are certain abilities that will help you perform as well. And you know what? It is just a very solid shooter. even if you haven't seen Hard Boiled, if you're looking for a solid Max Payne-like game, I would definitely go ahead and give this game a proper go. It is absolutely worth it. Next up is Skydrift Infinity. Now, this is actually kind of a pseudo, I don't know how you call this, remaster, remake, I don't know. Well, Skydrift, the original, came out back in 2011, and it's an airplane racing game. Think Crimson Skies mixed with Mario Kart, if you will. Now, this game originally came out back on the 360 and PlayStation 3 in 2011, and also did get a PC release. But about 10 years later, a full-on remaster is what it is, called Skydrift Infinity, brought the game to modern platforms, including Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. I gotta say, not many games actually can kind of take that sort of style. Really, I guess the closest you can think of is Plane Crazy, essentially, which came out back in 1998 for Windows platforms, and also the flight mode of Diddy Kong Racing. And essentially, it's pretty much what you would expect here, I guess. It actually is a pretty enjoyable game, I would say. It can get a bit challenging on higher difficulties, but not many plane racing games can actually hit here, and I have to say, this one is pretty fun for what it is. It usually goes on sale pretty cheap on Steam, and if you're looking for a decent plane racing game, this one's worth a go. I don't have much more to say about it. Now, this one I might have quite a bit to say, even though I've never actually, I only played it this year for the first time. Balatro. Oh boy, or Balatro, or I don't even know how you do it. Yeah, Balatro here, or Balatro. I don't even know here. There's like two pronunciations. I just say Balatro. Yeah, it took me a good while to actually play this, like a year after it actually came out, a little more than that. But one day I decided, well, what the hell? What do I have to lose by not giving this a go? This seemed like a game that should have been right up my alley, because this game actually was a very unique card game. I don't even know how to describe it. It's so weird. It's basically though a rogue-like deck building poker game. It's not fully poker. It's based on the rules, but it's a little bit different. See, how it works is that you're trying to build the best poker hand you can with a 52 card deck. And these hands can actually earn you points. And you have to earn a certain number of points to beat the threshold so you can move on to the next round. Now, what makes it unique are all these various jokers. Now, these jokers give you various unique abilities that can enhance the score of your hand. Like if you have a particular hand, or it'll enhance certain suits of cards. And there's other abilities that can enhance other cards, like tarot cards can help enhance individual cards or turn cards into other ones if you're looking to do anything else here. And yeah, and once you beat a certain blind, is what it's referred to as in game, you'll earn money, which you can use to spend on upgrades and other things. And some of these abilities will officially allow you different types of poker hands, essentially, that can pretty much, yeah, they will very much, uh, just unique poker hands that you wouldn't even be able to get in real life by playing with a standard 52 card deck, such as a 5 of a kind, where you have 5 nines, a flush house, 3 nines of a specific suit, and 2 sevens of the same suit, like all diamonds, and then 3 nines and 2 sevens, or a flush 5, which is essentially, well, think about 5 10 of clubs. Your modifiers will allow you to do that, and there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, but it's very much a difficult game here, and you have to really think a lot about it, and it will take you a while too, and some of these hands can get insane with the thresholds you have to beat. Yeah, and when you get to the final ante here and you have the showdown blind, that's where the real tough shit begins. But if you think of a good strategy that will help you, you can really go far. And there's all sorts of... So this Balatro is a very damn good game. It's earned its reputation, and you should absolutely play it if you have even the slightest interest in card games, because, quite frankly, this is such a good game here. It really, really is, and I'm finally glad I was able to play it. I really liked it. I guess it's my current favorite modern game, if you will. But we'll see what happens when Mouse PI for Hire comes out, because I really do want to play that. And finally, to close off the last game on the PS3 backlog here for the year at least, and yeah, or at least that I was able to finish, God of War Ascension. The last of the main original line of God of War games from the Greek era. But it's actually a prequel. Every saga has a beginning, and this is the story of where it all starts for Kratos. Yeah, basically this is Kratos' origin story as he basically he escapes his imprisonment after he breaks his blood oath to Ares, the main god of war. And then eventually he's helped by the Oathkeeper Orcos, then as a result, Kratos becomes free, confronts the Furies, and aims to free himself of his bond to Ares. And then that basically, you know how the rest of the trilogy goes. I shouldn't even have to say it. Yeah, this is pretty much still a very straightforward game. I don't think it's really going to revolutionize the franchise in a way. But for the most, and the multiplayer, which I'm pretty sure you can't even play anymore, which just felt tacked on and not really necessary in a series that was not really well known for multiplayer. Well, maybe it is still active, but even then, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Well, in spite of all of this, I will say, God of War Ascension is pretty much in line with the other games in the original series. And it's one of the only ones I streamed alongside the third because I played the first two in my spare time, but maybe I should go back and play them because they're really good games. It's your standard hacking, slashing, puzzle solving, platforming ordeal. There's really not much else to say about it. You got all the magic disciplines for the various unique abilities and everything. And yeah, if you've played even any of the past ones, this is pretty much the same ordeal. I don't know where this would rank overall for me because I've only played the console God of Wars of the Greek era, not the PSP ones, so I can't speak on those. I don't know, it's tough. I feel like 3 is my favorite, then 2, then 1, then maybe this. I don't know. I'll have to see. And I've not even touched the Norse era, but now that I've gone through these ones, I feel like the Norse era is inevitable. Yes, now I eventually get, maybe this year I'll get to Boy of War before we know it. I know, overused joke, but God of War Ascension's a solid game still, even if it's much of the same, but I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, to close out December, I decided to start a mission, actually. You see, to my and possibly a whole bunch of other people's surprises, I hadn't actually played that many of the Mario games, and I had never even beaten a single one of them. And with the Mario Galaxy movie releasing this year, I decided no better time than towards the end of 2025 to start actually knocking these games off my list. So yeah, because I had Super Mario All-Stars and I had finished Sunshine. Okay, that's not true. I did beat Sunshine in 2024. It's just that that one kind of drove me up a wall. So yeah. I was just disappointed with it, but I've already expressed my disappointment. So let's just keep going on, shall we? But I had never beaten any of the classic 2D Marios or the majority of the 3D Marios up to that point. So I figured with the Mario Galaxy movie coming out this year, there's no better time to start knocking these games off my list than now. And I started with New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Now, the New Super Mario Bros. Series technically started on the DS with the original. But New Super Mario Wii pretty much, well, takes the game and put it into the Wii version. On the Wii console, I mean. And, well, yeah, it's pretty much what you would expect. Standard, classic Mario side-scrolling action, straight from the old NES and SNES era. It's pretty much what you would expect. You control Mario, and you travel 8 worlds and fight Bowser's army and well, the Koopa siblings to save Peach. It's what you would expect. And this was actually the first Super Mario game to feature simultaneous co-op multiplayer, which meant up to 4 people could play in multiplayer and take control of Mario, as well as Luigi and one of 2 multicolored toads, either blue or yellow. There's also the Super Guy, which allows you to watch a computer-controlled character complete a level should you fail enough times. And yeah, you're gonna need it because holy shit, this game is kind of brutal. Even though it doesn't use motion controls for the most part here, well, kind of, it really does, but nothing major. Even playing it with the Wii remote sideways was an absolute not fun ordeal. Genuinely, I was none too happy actually with how this went because, well, it was a lot rougher to play than I thought. I don't know why, but I feel like in general, it's just not as smooth as you might think, and that's why I kept struggling with the game so goddamn much. There were some points where I was just so frustrated and just wanted to say fuck it, even though everything else about it is fine. The graphics, the music, the world building, a lot of other stuff. But otherwise, actually having to play it is a mess. And I've heard playing this in cooperative play is an absolute nightmare. Well, it can be if nobody is on the same page. And some critics were disappointed by the lack of innovation, but that's not my problem because, you know, the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But here it's like, some power-ups are still broken as hell, like the helicopter one can especially, um, get you out of a jam, but you still have to be careful. It's just that some levels suck, and they really suck and kind of drag this one down for me. Yeah, if I was to replay this, I would replay this in like either emulation with an actual controller, or if they re-released it on the Switch or whatever, but I doubt it. Because we have New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for the Switch, which we'll get into that one next. And holy shit, everything I hated about New Super Mario Wii and how clunky it felt has been entirely fixed here. Maybe going to the Pro Controller actually did make a world of difference, but you know what? It was actually fun to play. Not once did I ever feel overwhelmed whatsoever. A lot of the level design, just when you think Nintendo still is running out of ideas, they'll find a way to change things and flip things on their head. Although some people criticize the atmosphere, I kind of disagree with that. But yeah, New Super Mario U is basically a lot of the same. Uh, it's got a lot of returning elements too. The ice flowers, fire, and well, Yoshi, because who doesn't love Yoshi? There's a new power up known as the flying squirrel, which is kind of like the cape to a certain degree from Super Mario World, but very much different because you can glide long distances or slowly descend down on vertical paths, and you can even cling to side of the walls. And there are baby Yoshis as well that you can carry, and they each have abilities depending on the color. Like they can inflate in midair or light up dark areas. And some older powers ups have new abilities, so they feel a bit more fresh. And by and large, honestly, New Super Mario U Deluxe was so much more fun to play than New Super Mario Wii. I definitely would play it on the Switch, but if you gotta play it on the Wii U, you can use it with a Pro controller. Thankfully, you can here, and that will probably help. I don't know how it would be with the Wii U gamepad, Or, yeah, you can use the Wii Remote itself as well, but I don't recommend that anymore. But yeah, New Super Mario U Deluxe, especially the deluxe version, because basically it runs at native 1080p instead of 720p on the Wii U. HD Rumble support if you're using the Joy-Cons and if you're into that thing. Toadette and Nabbit are introduced as playable characters, which of course the whole Toadette thing basically introduced the Super Crown to turn her into Peachette, and well, we all know eventually what happened when people thought Bowser would put the crown on, and that's what led to Bowsette, and yeah. And Nabbit is also now playable in the original campaign instead of being exclusive to the new Super Luigi U DLC. Oh yeah, that's included in the deluxe version, new Super Luigi U, which is somehow an even harder version. If New Super Mario U wasn't that hard enough for you, you can try New Super Luigi U and see how that goes. You can pick any character in single player mode rather than Mario being the only option. Blue Toad is now Yellow Toad, in which both of which are just known as Toad. And yeah, honestly, I would just get that version if you didn't get the Wii U port, because the Wii U original release, because yeah, New Super Mario U at that point was my favorite until we got to Wonder, but we have one little extra stop along the way. Well, you didn't think I'd be playing all Mario now, did ya? Well, no. I had bought this game 1 year prior to actually playing it in the previous Steam Winter Sale, and with some close friends of mine being hooked on Crossroads, Sonic Crossroads, I wanted to knock the other Sonic games, at least the 3D ones, off my list before I even got to Frontiers. So for the first time ever, I finally played Sonic Colors. I played the Ultimate port actually, because it was released in 2021 to celebrate the 30th anniversary, but you had to wait a year if you were getting it on PC because fucking Epic Games Store can kiss my ass in hell. And also, that port was kind of rushed a bit, anyways, and the PC port in particular was not great. Not great at all, but over time it has been patched somewhat. Okay, never mind. It took a little more than a year to get it on Steam, but never mind that shit. How's the game itself? It's fine actually. In terms of 3D Sonic games, this is definitely one of the better ones. Like, going from Unleashed with the game break, with the whole separate werewolf mechanic, which itself should have been an entirely separate game, and I do have words for that, but I have never even beaten Unleashed, so maybe one day I'll try and get off my ass and go finish it. Maybe use the decompile port for the 360 version so I can play it on PC, because Sega ain't gonna bring it to modern platforms anytime soon, so screw us or whatever. But yeah, going to Colors, the gameplay just flowed a hell of a lot more naturally compared to what we had dealt with before. And you definitely see sort of the remnants here, focusing more on the daytime stages of Sonic Unleashed and less of the other stuff. And the Wisp mechanics here, they actually are implemented pretty well and don't break the flow of the gameplay. And it actually ended up becoming a staple as a result. There's a reason Generations, Lost World, and Forces all featured them as well, because they were a very well addition that added some variety to the gameplay and wasn't just the same old ordeal. It genuinely got better as it went on here for a bit. Okay, well, I feel like we kind of hit a gap after Generations here, because Forces was whatever, really. And I'm actually in the process of playing Lost World. I have not finished it, but I will probably finish it this year, and as such, you will hear my thoughts about it in the games I played in 2026 video, but we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, also, Ultimate also did kind of change some things about it too, like replacing the lives mechanic from the original game with assistance by Tails, which you can be rescued from a dangerous falls for a limited amount of uses until it sends you back to the checkpoint. There's the Jade Ghost Wisp from power-up from Team Sonic Racing, which allows you to go through solid objects and access secret routes There's a Rival Rush mode in which you can race against Metal Sonic. Unlockable cosmetic options with a new currency called Park Tokens, including some based off the live-action CGI hybrid films. New lines from Kate Higgins here, who reprised her role for the English version, although Ryo Hironahashi does the honors in the Japanese version, which I did play the game with Japanese voices, full disclosure, because I do not like the direction the Sonic voice casting in English has taken since the since the 4Kids voice actors were unceremoniously yeeted out. Yeah, I know, it is what it is, but what can I do, really? I just make the most of it and do what I have to do. And holy shit, I just fucking realized the Japanese voice actress for Tails is the same voice actress who voiced Mineta in My Hero Academia. Well, I'm kind of speechless there, but never mind. There are mods if you want to play Colors Ultimate on PC, more like the original game. There are mods to help you out there, so you can research it, and other mods to fix up other things. Just get this one on a sale here with the Ultimate if you haven't, or if you have the ability to play the original, you can. Yeah, and play with Japanese voices, or don't. I don't care at this rate. I can't tell what you do, but that's just my personal suggestion from me to you. But yeah, do play Colors, because it actually is definitely, I think, one of the better 3D Sonic games we've had. And now we go back to 2D Mario, and the last game I played for 2025, and one I thought I would end on a banger note with by doing not one but two streams in the same day on New Year's Eve. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The first traditional Mario side-scrolling game since New Super Mario U. And basically, Mario, Luigi, and their friends, well, basically, you can play as Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, the yellow and blue Toads, Tourette, Nabbit, and 4 types of Yoshis. Whew, that's a lot of characters. And basically, you can complete levels across the Flower Kingdom with assistance from flower-like denizens. The plot, basically, is that Bowser is trying to take over a new land known as the Flower Kingdom, and he uses the magical Wonder Flower to fuse himself with the kingdom's castle. And that's where sort of the name of this game comes from. Now, what the hell essentially does these Wonder Flowers do? Well, they can basically turn the levels in all sorts of other different ways. Like, straight up, they will turn the levels into the most trippiest design. I think either the devs must have watched too much Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas before they made this game, because how else do you explain the way it looks? It's basic Mario platforming for the most part, but there are also some new power-ups, actually, too, that are in addition to many of the old ones. Although the Flying Squirrel one does not return, you do got some new ones. Mainly the big new one is the elephant power up, because that will make you bigger and a little slower, but you can easily knock enemies off more and even pick up water and basically throw it at enemies. There's a flower that allows you to create bubbles to capture enemies, and a mushroom that gives you a drill so you can go underground and evade enemies or bypass obstacles. Now, the Wonder Flower triggers effects that cause pipes to come to life, hordes of enemies spawn, character appearances and abilities change, and once you get the Wonder Seed or leave the area of effect, that's when you basically end the effect. It's quite frankly the most craziest thing. This is a very colorful game and one of the most beautiful looking games on the Nintendo Switch that was built directly for it. Straight up, there is also another ability now to help you get through some of these levels, as if you're already even halfway decent at one Mario game or any of the old school ones. You can actually kind of breeze through this one even a bit easier than New Super Mario U, although maybe I'd put U a little bit in the easier one than this, but these are kind of neck and neck. Anyways, the new ability, new feature are these badges. Now, as you go through the game, you can earn these badges that will give you different advantages that will help you out. You can use action badges that can help grant you a certain ability, boost badges to give you passive abilities, and expert badges for advanced skill. You can only equip one per level at a time. They're usually optional, and you can shut them off for higher difficulty, but you may want to use some of them because there are certain abilities that they have that will actually allow you to access areas and find other secrets that you wouldn't normally be able. So it's not just there to make it even easier. It's there also so you can explore a hell of a lot more as well. Because there are still a lot of secrets to find in this game, as you would in typical Mario fashion. There's also local multiplayer again, for 12 players in a room with a limit of 4 in an active level. There's also some online multiplayer functionality, and you may see other people present. When other online people are nearby, defeated players become ghosts and are given a short window to revive themselves by flying towards another player or standee placed by another player. But I played the game entirely in single player mode without even going online once, so much as I could help it. Yeah, Mario Wonder is very creative. The universal acclaim of this game is worthy. I don't know if this is the highest game ranked on the Switch on Metacritic. Let's see, Metacritic Switch. I'm going to do a quick look, but it definitely is one of the best games on the entire system, and you should absolutely play it. Well, no, it's not. It only cracks in at number 14 here, with the highest ranked one being Breath of the Wild. Man, with all of this talk here about Mario and my big goals, when the heck am I going to get to Zelda? I don't know. We'll see. But right now, my main goal is Mario. And I've knocked out all the major 2D Mario games off my backlog that aren't any of the old school ones, like from the NES era. It's basically been New Super Mario Wii, New Super Mario U Deluxe, and Mario Wonder. And no, I'm not counting any of the dedicated handheld ones like Super Mario Land or any of those sequels. Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo, or any other handheld ones like New Super Mario 1 or New Super Mario 2 on the 3DS. Because those are a whole other category, and definitely not counting Maker and Maker 2, since those are not your traditional ones, although I'll probably pick up Maker 2 at some point because I'm trying to collect as many Switch exclusives as I can. But yeah, I really liked Mario Wonder. I know my cousin Seb wasn't a big fan of the art style, and if he's watching this, sorry Seb, but I actually really like this game and think it's the best 2D Mario of the bunch. What can I say? Let's wrap it up there. And with that, that closes out my gaming history for 2025 for the most part. There's some other things I could have mentioned, but there's really nothing major. Barring a replay of an old childhood game, practically, that was more like an even further step down from the Junior Adventure stuff in Arthur's Camping Adventure, only because it's now available on Steam, and more Wing It Cloud stuff that at this point I really don't think I should be talking about as actual games, because it's really not, and there's really not much for me to say there. But yes, 2026, I hope to conquer more off my list, go through other series I haven't, take a good bite out of this backlog while continuing to do what I do elsewhere, and we'll see how it goes. I think we've already laid out the objectives starting off the year, continuing all the Mario 3D games I haven't beaten, so 64, Galaxy, Galaxy 2, 3D World, and Odyssey. No, 3D Land is mobile only, so I'm not counting that one. Maybe one day if I get in a proper 3DS emulation. We'll see. But otherwise, I don't know. With that, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you all in the next video, and yeah. Bye for now, and have a good 2026. I'll see you soon.